Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terror Podcast, Season 10, Episode 40. He's Dave Bryan, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us on this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good on this Friday. I think I'm gonna make some spaghetti today and have a nice, quiet kind of afternoon, possibly, today. So yeah, looking forward to it. How's your Friday going so far?
It's good. It's cold outside. I think we're getting our first little flurries of the year. 31 degrees.
Is there any? I heard somebody, one of the national Fox Radio guys interviewing Jalen Samuels yesterday and saying, I hear there might be snow up there on Sunday. That's not in the forecast, is it?
I haven't looked at the Sunday forecast yet, but it's gonna start feeling like November and December weather. It's gonna be at least really cold. I know that much. I'm not sure what the snow accumulation might be though.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a little bit? I mean, you would think that would help the Steelers obviously a little bit more, than the Rams would. So
provided there's someone to hand the ball off to. Because right now let's get into it because that seems pretty dicey. And the Steelers injury report here is not good for the running back position. It's not good in general for kind of where this team was at. Compared to the beginning of the week. No James Conner, no Ramon Foster, no Rosie Nix, no Tyson Alulu, no Trey Edmonds, no Benny Snell. I think I hit all the names. Those guys all sitting out of Thursday's practice. Conner with the shoulder, Edmonds with the rib, Nix with that knee. He's been fighting for a while now. Snell's already been ruled out with the knee surgery he had a week ago. Foster still in concussion protocol. That's not good news for him. And then Tyson Alulu popped up with a knee injury, which is not good for a kind of end-of-the-week situation. Practicing in full with Switzer listed with a back, even though Tallman called it a rib. After Sunday's game against the Colts.
He's so thin. Those two are pretty close together, probably.
Yeah, for real. And then Mark Barron, Pouncey, McDonald, all guys that were given days off on Wednesday, practiced on Thursday. But the big news here is the running back situation, and the depth here continues to be tested.
Absolutely, it does. And at this point now, Mike Tomlin had talked about hopefully James Conner would perk up at the end of the week. He perked down. Obviously, Benny Snell's not going to play. Boy, even if Trey Edmonds is able to go, practice fully today, him not getting a lot, any work, that's concerning in practice, especially a guy that talk about ball placement like Tomlin did this past week. You don't want to see that. Obviously with Roosevelt Nix, your fullback not working in a week in which you probably want to be able to run the ball the best you've run it all season. You're missing a lot of pieces there. And then Ramon Foster, to hear Ramon talk earlier in the week, I thought he was going to go, and I to my understanding, I thought these guys weren't allowed to do, or weren't, I guess Ramon's been around long enough; he can probably do what he wants to do. But no media interviews until you're out of concussion protocol. So I guess radio doesn't kind of maybe fall into that category there. And then outside of the running game there, Tyson Alulu, who never misses games with injury. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that's been a picture of health throughout his entire career. It's been him. And what I think in his entire career, he's been inactive for 2 games. And I know one of them was a coach's decision. I don't remember what the other one was there. So for him to get banged up, that's something there. And this is a team that's already short. Obviously, Stephon Tuitt there, and you kind of took a little bit of comfort knowing that Tyson Alulu is a veteran that could kind of launch some snaps behind him. So, yeah, not good. And I think the running back injuries here is what led to Sutton Smith doing the old Grandpa Simpson in the door, out the door kind of thing. He was signed on Wednesday and gone by Thursday morning. It's a quick and easy $8,000, I guess. But somebody perked down, or a couple people perked down. So now it'll be interesting to see. I mean, are we going to see a guy like Tony Brooks James get even more work in this game. I mean, obviously Jalen Samuels is going to get a lot of work in this game, but if Edmonds can't go and you don't have a fullback, what the hell is going on here?
That is a very good question. I wish I had an answer for it. So, yeah, just to get the transaction out there, Sutton Smith released one day after being signed to the practice squad. The team brought back Darren Hall, the running back from Pitt, who's been on the practice squad for about 2 weeks. And as of right now, the only healthy running backs on your roster are Jalen Samuels, Tony Brooks-James, and Darren Hall, again, the latter on the practice squad. So will they call him up and add another running back to the roster? I don't know, but you're right. Connor has basically already been ruled out by media reports. Snell's not playing. Edmonds does not look good being a young guy missing this much time. Probably doubtful for him at this point. Did they roll with 2 running backs again? Did they call somebody up? I mean, they're simply running out of players to release too, and they're just with this 1950s all running backs type of roster. I mean, if they were to add Hall, they would have 6 running backs plus a fullback on the 53, if my math is right.
Yeah, that's something. Who would you release? I mean, I guess, depending on what you think about Benny Snell and his condition right now. I mean, could he be a candidate for IR?
I mean, the initial report was 2 to 3 weeks. If he's that close, if that's accurate, that'd be tough to do.
Do you just go ahead and Trey Edmonds would probably make it back around, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could cut Paxton Lynch. They want to do the 3 quarterbacks thing, but for a 1 week emergency, I think this kind of qualifies.
Yeah, you could definitely go Paxton Lynch, and it'll be interesting to see which way they go. But yeah, let's put it to you this way: I'm not going to put my inactives together until 4:00. My projected inactives together until 4:00 on Saturday, because we might be sitting around waiting for a roster move at that point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a big concern for the run game, but do you think this team can still run the ball effectively if, worst case scenario, you have a running back group of Samuels and Brooks-James and maybe Hall? I mean, do you think this running game is going to really suffer because of it?
I guess it can get a little bit worse, but it hasn't been great all season anyway with the run success rates,
right. I mean, I thought they kind of managed it, not great, but it could be worse than last week, because obviously last week was not great. You had the big run by Edmonds, and then the run game did basically nothing else, though I thought at least it provided some semblance of balance in a couple dimensions, but I think it'd be even tougher because Samuels is averaging under 3 yards per carry this year. Brooks-James has 1 career carry, and Hall's never appeared in an NFL game, so it's going to get really thin. You better trust that offensive line to block it up, but you're facing a Rams defensive line that's among the best in football.
You better be able to find some running game in this game or run game alternatives.
Mm-hmm. That might be the key. There's a lot of run game alternatives.
And I know people hate to hear that, but it's probably going to be what's we talked a little bit the other day about maybe getting a little bit of RPO back in this week. Something we haven't really seen the last couple of games. At least that kind of dictates make a read, get the ball out of your hand, either in the belly of a running back or on a quick kind of pop pass over the seam, or to kind of out to a wide receiver screen right there. So give Mason a lot of things, a lot of different ways he can go with the football there right out of the chute, and let him get the football out of his hand quickly. And maybe with some of with that and mixed in with some design screens that we've seen, maybe those can be some run game alternatives. I'm having a hard time picturing this team registering 25 to 28 true running back carries in this game for 130, 140 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't envision it right now unless they bust off an 80-yarder in there to skew the numbers a little bit if they get something blocked up right on one play. It's hard to go in with your same game plan that you would have with James Conner and Benny Snell as you would with the likely chance of having Jalen Samuels and Tony Brooks-James. You got to change something to do the same thing with that downgrade and lack of depth would be, I think, insanity.
And man, you might not even have a fullback in this one.
All right.
All
right. Yeah. It's a tough situation, so we'll monitor it. We'll get the final injury report out soon, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. But it obviously does not look good for the Steelers' backfield right now, and they're going to be in some kind of dire straits at the position they haven't normally been in for a long, long time. But another position I want to talk about here, but before I do that, I do want to mention we do have a beat writer on this week, Vinny Bonsignor from The Athletic, covers the Rams. We'll talk to him a little bit later in the show. But Dave, tell us about the offensive line. Matt Filer moving to guard. What's going on there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know for sure how it's going to shake out, but they certainly gave us a little something to write and think about yesterday during practice, and evidently this has gone on for a couple of practices, Wednesday and Thursday as well too. So, if the reports coming out is that Matt Filer has worked back-to-back days at left guard in place of Ramon Foster. And with him working at left guard, that is resulting in Chukwuma Okorafor. I haven't said that name a lot. I think I did pretty good at getting it out of my mouth that time.
There you go.
At right tackle there. So, neither one of them are ready to spill the beans as to, hey, is that just we need reps there at those positions because we are only in effect dressing or have the 5, 6, 7 technical linemen to work with on game days, but that doesn't change from week to week anyway. They normally only dress 7 offensive linemen for games. So is this something that might be, obviously with Ramon? And I don't know what you thought about B.J. Finney, but I thought he played a pretty decent game. This last time around. I mean, typical B.J. Finney at left guard kind of stuff, if you will. But with him, not at left guard. Now, I understand maybe on Wednesday when you try to give Pouncey the day off,
Right.
And perfect opportunity to get Finney some snaps at center on a weekly. But 2 days in a row and Finney not being on the injury report, yeah, that's something I didn't see coming right there. Now, is it going to happen on Sunday? I don't know. Matt Filer is the strongest guy on the team. So if you were trying to do this as a game-specific thing because of Aaron Donald, okay, maybe I kind of see that. Chukwuma Okorafor has started out, one game at right tackle, and let's face it, if not for a little bit of help that he got in that, or a lot of bit of help that he got in that game, that would have probably been not what we wanted to see. I mean, he gave up like four quarterback hurries and a sack in that game. I mean, it wasn't an awful performance, but to contextualize it properly, he got help in that game as well too. I don't understand. This is very not typical Steelers because even if an injury crops up, they usually only like to try to make it affect one position if at all possible. And for them to go juggling things around and Filer to left guard and bring in another right tackle who's barely played, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, Alex.
It's very strange. I agree with you on Wednesday. You understand it, and I know you want to get reps there because if, let's say, Pouncey goes down in the middle of a game, you're going to have to shuffle guys around. You have no choice at this point. So if Pouncey went down against the Rams on Sunday, Finney would have to move the center. Then you finally would go to left guard. Then you would have Banner, I guess, would be up at that point, but Banner or Okorafor at right tackle. So I understand needing to prepare for that. But to do that 2 days in a row, to rob Finney of those reps, is strange. Now, Randy Fichtner was asked about this on Thursday and was asked the question, quote, do you expect to go with B.J. Finney if Ramon Foster can't go? Fichtner says, quote, well, Finn's been great. I mean, yes, we've been trying to piecemeal. It's funny to talk about musical chairs. I mean, we've been having to do some of that too. We know we have an X number of guys that can play, so you've got to kind of fit them and see who's going to be available, and I still hold out hope for Ramon. You're just not sure when it comes to those types of things. So he did say yes to the question, but he did kind of obviously dance around it a bit too. I mean, I understand the idea of, what Aaron Donald brings and how big of a threat he is and the best defensive player in football. But with the way they move him around, he does not line up as the 3-tech to the right side of the defense every single time. And with the other pass rush threats on this team that are very potent, Clay Matthews, Dante Fowler, it would be, we'll call it uncharacteristic, and I would call it stupid for the Steelers to try to game plan and shuffle their offensive line specifically for just one guy when in reality he's going to move around and there are a ton of threats on this Rams pass rush that you have to account for.
Yeah, and okay, I get it that Matt Filer has not taken any many, if any, reps at left guard during the regular season here. But are you living in your are you living in your fears that much where this is the week that you have to work on that kind of stuff? You
Mm-hmm.
know, why not during, maybe the early portion of the bye or whatnot, kind of get with that stuff. To me, and if you think that guy, a guy like Ramon Foster's not going to play, I want Finney over there at left guard working
Mm-hmm.
alongside Alejandro Villanueva as many practice reps as I can.
I do too, 100%. Now, do we know for sure that Fowler took like every snap, or did he
No,
get
no.
mixed
I
in?
mean, look, we weren't there. We don't know
Right.
kind of the kind of even the context of
Right.
the answers that Filer and Okorafor. We see them in written form. We see the rush for basically both papers to get a story out about it. Is that I don't know what to read into any of it, to be quite honest with you, other than to scratch my head and say, man, if this is the way that it ends up turning out, I don't get. The only other thing that I can fathom, and once again, look, late at night sometimes you're kind of looking at that tinfoil hat, and it's looking pretty attractive
You
to
trying to put
you.
it on Dave last night?
Yeah,
All right.
you kind of want to see how it fits and all. What if Ramon fought? This is out there, folks. Right now, what if Roosevelt next can't play this week, and you still want to kind of run some of that power stuff, and you want to
Finney at fullback?
put BJ Finney at fullback there.
That's a thought. The only
It's a thought.
Yeah. I mean, those were words in a sentence for sure. Tyson Alulu had actually gotten the other snap at fullback this year, but he's obviously on the injury report with that knee injury now. So my first thought was, well, Lulu had been the quote unquote backup fullback, but now he's up in the air. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Well, I mean, you kind of bow tie that all together too with them Sutton Smith. Why the hell were you bringing Sutton Smith back in this week?
if Finney had gotten some reps at fullback, though, I think someone would have reported that.
Well, they can't unless somebody says.
Well, I know, but they would have found a way, just in the way that they reported, Fowler moving to left guard. They had to you have to do the whole reverse engineer and
Sure.
ask them about it and stuff like that. I think it
Sure.
would have come out at some point. So
I
what
understand.
you're saying.
I preface that by saying,
It's out there.
it's out there.
Mhm.
But I mean, that to me, that's the only way you could kind of justify this.
Yeah.
I try to look at what's given me, and then I try to justify why something like that would happen. Now, obviously, I'm going to be a stinking genius if something like that happens. But I mean, look, I don't know how it's going to shape out. To be honest with you.
I think it's going to be Finney. I still think that's how it's going to go. I'll ask you here in a second, but you're trying to bring back the old Legursky Bronco package.
Woo!
Remember those days?
I didn't mind that, especially at the look. You got to. I tell you what, you got to do something down there at the goal line a little bit different.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the offensive line the red zone play has been terrible. And last week they were 1 of 4 of the red zone, and some of that was on the line, some of that was on the running backs. But it's got to get better regardless.
How do you think this thing's going to shake out then? I mean, do you think we're going to? Why the rush to get out there and report this? If
Well, I think it's notable to do it 2 days. For Wednesday, it's not notable because Pouncey's not practicing. But on 2 days in a row, I mean, I'm glad that they said something.
Yeah, and we'll see. But once again, it goes back to, man, why the hell, especially a team against like Aaron Donald and all like that. I want everybody in their positions getting as many reps as they possibly can. As well, and boy, I'm going to be scratching my, Clay Matthews or Dante Fowler going up against Chukwuma Okorafor, and if that happens, how much help, you're going to have running backs who probably not playing a lot of snaps, knowing when to properly and how to chip, and and are you going to max protect enough that's going to cause one of your I don't get it. And why wouldn't Zach Banner be kind of maybe your next man up at right tackle? Are you really intending on using him, 18 snaps in the game as the eligible, reporting, extra offensive lineman there?
Right. Well, I guess if you're playing the whole matchup thing, if the idea is that's why they're moving Filer, I think a core forward matchup against some speedier rushers like Dante Fowler and Clay Matthews better than a Zach Banner would. My ultimate thought, though, is, again, because Aaron Donald moves around, Aaron Donald will go up against a core four in this game, if that's hypothetically how things went down and he started at right tackle. But my belief is that Sunday against the Rams, it will be B.J. Finney at left guard, Matt Feiler at right tackle. What do you think?
I wouldn't agree with that except for the way there's the in there by Randy Fichtner kind of in his Finney answer.
That's what I'm partially going off of, too. And also just logical sense of why the Steelers are smart with how they handle the offensive line, and to do this musical chair shuffling just because of Aaron Donald, who's going to move around anyway, is just silly.
Yeah, and I wrote, the Steelers are known as a team. The Steelers aren't. I didn't word that right. Steelers aren't known as a team that likes to tinker much with their offensive line, barring injuries, and whenever those sorts of adjustments are needed to be made, they usually don't like to affect more than one position if they can help it. So, just but look, we've don't talk in absolutes, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say in absolutes because it is strange. I mean, I literally audibly said what when I saw the story from the Trib that Feiler was moving to left guard and Okorafor could start and Finney wasn't hurt. So I think it's strange, worth talking about. We'll see what happens on Sunday, but I think things will remain status quo.
Right, and is Tomlin kind of preparing for the worst here? As well, if we can't run the ball early with those guys in there, maybe we'll flip it around a little bit. I don't know, but one day I get it, especially on Wednesday because of you giving Pouncey off, let Finney work at center and Feiler at guard. But 2 days in a row, I mean, I realize this is an experienced group, but yeah, we'll see.
We will see. All right, Dave, you mentioned Tomlin. So speaking of head coaches, Bill Cowher was on 93.7 The Fan the other day and said that this current team reminds him a lot of the 1994 team? Is that what it was?
Yeah, how old were you in 1994?
I was one, so you can probably speak to it a whole lot better than I can. So take it away with what Cowher said, kind of comparing this team and then comparing Ben and Mason, and kind of just talked about comparisons from then to now.
Yeah, pretty good interview overall with with Cowher. First and foremost, he was asked if fans likely have a skewed view of young Pittsburgh quarterback or what a young Pittsburgh quarterback is like because of how good Ben Roethlisberger was during his 2004 rookie season. Nah, Steeler fans wouldn't do that.
Nope,
would they?
Calm, rational, collected.
Cowher says, yeah, I mean, Ben, would be a hard guy to follow, right? And I think that, he really didn't give a firm assessment really of what he thinks of Mason, but he says, and I think what Mason has done, I give a lot of credit to Mike Tomlin and Randy Fichtner. I think what they've done with this offense is really play to some of its strengths, and I really like what they've done, and each week it's been a little bit different package that they have, and I think that they've been very resourceful in how they've gone about it. I think they've been a little bit unconventional at times. He goes on to say how Rudolph and the current state of the Steelers offense this year kind of reminds him some of the team that he had during his first few seasons that he was the head coach in Pittsburgh. And he was saying, I was looking back the other day and I said they look like the 1994 Steelers with Neil O'Donnell. Boy, that'll make you cringe. One of these times, maybe during the offseason, I'm going to go back and try to watch that entire season there. He says that when you talk about a good, I'm missing it. He says, I was looking the other day and I said they looked like the 1994 Steelers with Neil O'Donnell. They had two tight ends, a fullback in there was Roosevelt Nixon. They're running the football. I said I loved it, and they're throwing the ball down the field, down the sideline with a couple of play action goes. Let's see, he asked about does it take a special kind of coordinator to work with a young quarterback like that? And he says, well, he went into the whole teaching thing, and as good of a teacher you are, not every student's the same. And then he goes, and so I think what Randy's trying to get a feel for Mason, what he's comfortable with, what they would like to be able to do, and that continues to have experiences week in and week out. So you learn about each other as they go through the process. So overall, and Mike Tomlin started getting into other not Mike Tomlin, Bill Cowher started getting into other things here, and just likes the way kind of this team has evolved and hardened this year. Coming out of that game against the Ravens, it wasn't looking too good, was it, Alex? 1-4, quarterback goes down and goes down hard. Not looking too optimistic right there, but he's kind of liked what he's seen out of the team since then, how they've got a little bit of swagger and how they're sort of creating a little bit of an identity for themselves there. So, look, make no mistake about it. He pretty much said this, that, the identity of this team right now is, can we not turn the football over on offense, and can we let the defense kind of do their thing and maybe get the offense set up in good field position, and kind of reminiscent of that '94 defense. Alex, how many sacks did the '94 defense have?
Well, I'm reading the article, so I'm spoiling it here. Do you want to answer it anyway, and for the fans at home?
Yeah, go ahead.
They had 55 sacks and 31 total takeaways, which sounds pretty reminiscent to what this 2019 Steelers defense is on pace to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the first thing when I went back, and I didn't remember those verbatim too when Cowher started talking about the '94 team. But boy, when you go back and look at it, looks like this team's on pace for that, right?
Mm-hmm. I think they're on pace
maybe
for
a little
58.
Better.
Well, 58 sacks, yeah, and then the takeaways are on pace for they're 22, so that'd be 44, which they probably won't go that many, but they'll be around the 35 mark. So it'll be numbers that are very similar, bear striking resemblance to the '94 team.
And like it or not, as bad as that offense was that year, they were able to. I tell you, the one thing that's different is that team was able to run the football.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, they got set up in good field position quite a bit due to all those takeaways as well too. But and the offense turned the ball over 17 times all season, which slightly over once a game. I mean, I guess there are probably several games in there that they didn't turn the football over then. But I sort of get it, I guess. I mean, obviously the overall game of football has changed tremendously since 1994. You talk about base defense all the time then, and now you're talking about nickel and sub package defense nearly all the time now. So I sort of get it. I got a chuckle out of the whole thing. I thought overall it was a good interview.
Yeah, no, I think it's always good to get that perspective. And doesn't it kind of remind you a bit of the 04-05 bunch too, with young quarterback and a defense, and the run game obviously isn't as strong, but I think there's kind of some similarities to the 04-05 years too. Is that fair?
Yeah, the only thing is, I think we learned this about that week, when we talked about it not long ago, about the week, 5 or 6 game where Ben became Ben, Sure, Ben had his struggles, and it was a more, let's run the football kind of thing. But it didn't take long for Ben to become Ben, and we started to see those explosive plays,
right.
Those extended plays. And man, how many times have we talked about, just in probably the last 5 shows alone, I think what we're really seeing here, now, as opposed to when even Ben played, last year, was the fact that, and obviously Antonio Brown and what he provided, but those 2 or 3 times a game where Ben would extend the play and just throw a 22 pass down the field and get caught for an explosive play with one of those three plays going for a 68-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
We're just that's the kind of thing that we've been kind of spoiled with. One of the several things we've been kind of spoiled with that we're not really seeing right now. And look, make no mistake about it, this 2019 offense, God bless them, they've been set up with like the third best starting field position, I think, this year. And boy, what a flip that is from last year. It seemed like every drive started at the 25-yard line, and that's why Ben had to throw for, I don't know, what was it, 25,000 yards last year. It sure did feel like it at times. But that's some of the differences there. And look, I think we both agree, unless this team can continue to get takeaways on defense, and unless the offense really starts turning the corner here and running the football more successfully, it's going to be hard for this offense to score.
Right. This offense has to continue to progress. If they don't progress, the defense, even if they were hypothetically to stay at this level, which they likely are not going to be able to the rest of the way, just how the NFL goes, you're going to have ebbs and flows. The offense still isn't in a good enough place for this team to go where it wants to go and really make a true playoff run. So the offense has to get better. There's no doubt about that. This offense is worse than, say, the 2004-2005 version, and I'm sure it was worse back in '94. As well. Dave, speaking of quarterbacks, though, and Ben and Rudolph, you had an article that went up the other day, I believe on Wednesday night, that kind of had some surprising numbers about Ben's, pass distance data compared to Rudolph from last year, and that they're actually a lot more similar than you might expect.
Right, and but you do things like that, you see how quick the lines in the sand get drawn, right?
I think it's a little less Wild Wild West than how you frame it, but I got you.
Yeah, I mean, people get their feelings hurt whenever you start trying to even insinuate that these two quarterbacks did things similar, right? Boy, you throw just the raw percentages out there on Twitter, and boy, you start, it's like lighting a match in there. But the whole reason I went this way was to show kind of what Randy Fichtner's running offensively to some degree is very similar to what they ran last year. And look, if it's not there, check it down. You go back to last year, I think people continue to forget what happened last year with Ben. Ben was checked down Charlie last year, was he not?
Especially early in the year when they didn't have the Wi-Fi and you couldn't hit a deep ball to save your life.
Right. I mean, he ended the season with one of the lowest average completed air yards. You want to talk, I know I get on the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat. I absolutely love that average intended and completed yard. That's the first thing I try to run to, right after games as well too, outside of the adjusted net yards. But regardless, I went through and compiled the data back as far as pass distances go from. And people say, why'd you only do half of last season for Ben? Because you needed some sort of a data point to be kind of close to Mason Rudolph's, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because
Mason's only attempted 165 passes this year. To use Roethlisberger's whole 2018 season, I thought was just way too different of total data to work with there. I mean, I could have done it on the push of a button there. In fact, it probably would have played even more. I don't know if it would have played more into the comparison or not. But keep in mind that Roethlisberger through the teams or through the halfway point through 8 games last year had attempted 300. Boy, he was slinging it early, wasn't he? Or at least, even if it was short, throwing it around. 346 total pass attempts through 8 games played last season, while Rudolph has just 165 passes so far this season. Now, that needs some context too, because technically Rudolph has played the equivalent to 5 games, right?
Right, because he didn't start and he got hurt and missed a game, so yeah, hasn't played 8 games yet.
All right, so take 165. Pull out your calculator here. 165 and divide it by 5, and then times that number by 8.
Okay, 33 times 8 is 264.
So 264 versus say 346. He's still 80 would the pace would still be 80 pass attempts less.
More than 2 games behind Ben.
Right. But anyway, the table of data so far this season, and you can kind of get into splitting hairs here a little bit with these distances, but I didn't know the best way to present this. So far this season, 36.4% of Rudolph's total pass attempts have been throws that never cross the line of scrimmage. Okay, so either they're being thrown to somebody right at the line of scrimmage or behind. The passing yardage on those 50 completed passes is 232 yards, which is roughly 21.3% of his total yards. Okay, as for Roethlisberger last season, through 8 games, just 24.3% of his total pass attempts never crossed the line of scrimmage. Blah, blah, blah. You can read the rest of the data there. So as far as throws at or behind the line of scrimmage, Rudolph is a good 12% more than Roethlisberger through 8 games last season. However, and this is where you kind of get into splitting the hairs here. If you were to come, I broke this up into throws that went to the line of scrimmage and behind, and then the next data point was throws that went 1 to 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Now, if you take those 1 to 5 yard throws and combine them with the at the line of scrimmage or behind, you get some super similar numbers here when it comes to obviously to Rudolph and Roethlisberger. Rudolph's percentage comes in at 58.2%, while Roethlisberger through 8 games last season was 57.5. So Rudolph's still a little bit high, but I think to kind of sum up all that data right there, Roethlisberger and this is going to sound funny. I know it sounded funny when I kind of wrote it. Roethlisberger attempted a higher percentage of longer, short passes through 8 games played last season. I know it sounds funny, but, throwing the ball past the line of scrimmage 2 yards versus throwing the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage is still 4 yards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, even though the data does compare, and it was kind of a check down, shorter passing game for most part between Rudolph and Roethlisberger last year, there are still some minor splitting hair differences there. Now, when you get on past those, I mean, they're as far as the percentage of pass attempts, more than, let's say, 10 yards down the line, past the line of scrimmage, the percentages are kind of comparative there. And the big thing once again that sets these two quarterbacks apart, past the obvious of one extended the plays and whatnot, is the fact that Ben was obviously completed a higher percentage of his passes from, say, that 6 to 15 yard portion of the field there. So that's the big difference in it. Even though it's not a huge difference, it's enough that's the kind of stuff that extends drives. That's the kind of stuff that moves the sticks on third downs and those kind of things. So technically, and I think I don't know. I guess now it's time to turn it over to you to see what your initial takeaway was this when you saw the data and you saw the write up on this.
No, it was about everything that you've said. That the numbers did surprise me, but you just knew when you watched the tape that Ben was obviously a bigger threat to throw downfield, could extend the play more. So even if it was a 3-yard pass, ultimately it was a play where it was extended and instead of a throwaway or a sack or something like that, it was still a positive out of it. So it was a lot of numbers to go through. I didn't have any super big reaction one way or the other than just some surprise about how similar the numbers look. But I'm basically in line with what you're saying.
I thought the thing that struck me, and I should have remembered it anyway because I think I wrote about it at the time, Roethlisberger was not great. The whole Wi-Fi thing and all like that on deep passes down the field. Even the ones down the sideline and stuff last year. I remember how off target a lot of those were last year. In fact, if you look at the on target percentages, he was okay in a 16 to 20 range last year through the first 8 games, but the deep balls, I mean, he's a full 3% behind Mason Rudolph this year on the 21 plus yard throws. Now, Roethlisberger had 14 more than Mason has at the same point right now. But when you can consider that he played 8 games and Mason's played the equivalent of 5, I mean, I guess that's not too far off, but it's just not a large sample size, really overall for Mason Rudolph there. So, and I think the other thing that kind of maybe jumps out to you when you start splitting hairs kind of on the numbers, Alex, is 79 of Rudolph's 109 completions have been on balls thrown no longer than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Now, if you looked at just the passing charts alone, since Rudolph's played this season, you probably already had that one figured out. But to see the hard numbers there versus what's the percentage here? I thought I worked them up here overall. Figure out these percentages for me real quick, Alex. 79 divided by 109.
72.5%.
Okay, so 72.5% of every pass that Mason Rudolph has completed this season has flown 5 or less yards past the line of scrimmage. Now, divide 152 by 222.
68.5.
All right, so that's Roethlisberger last year.
That 5% difference.
Right, so that's
4% difference.
That's a. I mean, 4% might not sound like a lot, but it really is, right?
Yeah, it's noticeable. I do think Rudolph's numbers will rise the rest of the season.
You would hope.
I would hope just statistically, sure, kind of almost progress to more of a mean.
They
also,
better.
just with the way the offense has opened up the last 2 weeks, that they are taking more shots down. Because I think you saw that against Miami and Indy. Not that it was always complete, and that's obviously going to be a factor in the numbers. But I do think this offense has started to open up a bit out of the bye week, which is what I hoped and expected for. So I do believe if you compare, the rest of the season to Rudolph's first 5 games, I would expect the numbers overall to kind of go up.
And once again, folks, nobody's trying to put Mason Rudolph in the Pro Football Hall of Fame before Ben goes in. And in no way, shape, or form am I suggesting this team is better off without Ben Roethlisberger. But I think just the gist of this was, and I was originally asked this via email, which what kind of triggered. I was looking for something right about that afternoon anyway, and had the numbers right there to play with. And I want to. A lot of times I write about stuff because I want to look at it, and I figure, okay, I got the data here, might as well make a poorly written post about it. So that's why I went in this direction. But I think more than anything, it just shows you that the offenses are similar.
They are, yeah. But again, I hope that they're obviously a lot less effective. But I want to see this offense continue to evolve more because it's still, while the numbers look similar, it obviously has a much different feel than last year.
Yeah, it's a lot more clunkier.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of bounce off of that, the one thing that Mason Rudolph said in his interview with the media yesterday, really not a whole lot to go off of, but one thing that was curious, because we've heard in the past, especially in Rudolph's first couple starts, you got to push it downfield, some missed chances. Well, Rudolph was asked or was just talking about the frustration with the receiver group not getting the football really, against the Colts. I think only 8 total targets to receivers. And I thought he had one interesting comment, and he said, quote, Rudolph did, quote, I thought I forced one in there on the interception early, so sometimes the better thing to do, if you look back at the tape, you had a guy in the flat right there that would have gotten you 8 to 10 yards. Maybe you don't get the first down, but you help out the net punt that Randy talks about. We want to play past the sticks, and we want to move the chains, but you have to think about the bigger picture and field position and not turning the ball over and putting your defense in a bad spot. I cringed when I heard this because I'm sitting there going, Rudolph, you made the great play.
Yeah.
That was a tough throw, sure, a tight window, but that is an NFL throw that every quarterback has to make, and that would have moved the sticks. That would have been a big play. Let's not talk about checkdowns and punting and net field position for an offense that's struggling. I get the principle of it, and sure, on 3rd and 15 when nothing's there and you got to just check it down and punt and you're backed up in your own territory, I get that. On the safety punt that he took, that was an issue. You got to check it down, get the ball out, and just punt the ball away, fine, but that has me feeling like, they're going to start – that's the reason why Rudolph has played so conservatively, where he's really just focused on check it down, punt, let your defense is playing well, do its thing, and win the field position battle. So I saw that comment and went, that is the exact wrong takeaway from that interception. The thought process should be that was a great throw, a great decision, a big-time play, and the receiver just dropped it. That's on him, not on you. You did the right thing. Do it again next time.
Yeah, it's almost like Sister Randy Feetner.
What?
Sister Randy Feetner standing there with a ruler.
Oh, okay. I didn't go to Catholic school, so.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Maybe that's what's wrong with me. I'm pretty sure that might be what's wrong with me. It's almost like you get your knuckles cracked.
Right?
You throw downfield and you don't complete it. Whatever happens, bad, Mason, or some some shock therapy there or something like that. Poor guy. Don't know whether he's. I have kind of felt right from the get-go that he's kind of being told in one ear, look, you can open it up. You can open it up.
Right.
But don't make a mistake. Right.
He's got the devil and angel on his shoulders, and they're both Randy Fichtner.
Right. And I get he's a young quarterback, and you know, sure, do I have my issues with Randy Fichtner like the rest? Yeah, and I think you do too, but probably not to the degree that I think Randy's doing a good job with him right now. But I do think that there's a certain aspect of maybe what's going on behind closed doors, where there is sort of, okay, yeah, you could throw it down the field, but as soon as you do, if a negative play happens, you get in the shock treatment. And I would hate to think that Mason feels that interception to Juju was his fault. Ben would tell you it's not his fault.
Ben would just say, you know what, we're going to do it again. I got trust in Juju. We're going to go out there and make the play the next time.
If you want to self-deprecate yourself and take blame for something, talk about the damn sack. I mean, in the end zone, or talk about and I didn't really take it as Randy maybe throwing him underneath the bus, but kind of when did you kind of get to feel that he even kind of got scolded for throwing to Vance McDonald short of the goal line?
I know that Randy did reference that. I don't think Randy threw him under the bus at all, and this is obviously Rudolph talking and bringing it up mostly unprompted, but it just seemed like that was the takeaway that was discussed after the game or on the sideline, was that Randy said, don't throw that pass. Check it down. Let's get the 5 yards on third down and punt and win field position. And that is not the takeaway to have from the Rudolph pick to Juju. That is the complete opposite takeaway that should have happened.
No, or maybe I'm thinking about the wrong play. I took it maybe on one of the things that he was talking about with Randy talking about there being a guy back behind. Can you find the quote?
Well, I know
there?
Yeah, Randy did talk about the red zone throw to Vance, but I was talking about Rudolph talking about the interception to Juju. I can pull up the quote though here. Let me grab it here because I know that it did come up.
And that was one of the things when I read it, I thought, what? I mean, look, I understand, because I don't think you can live in that results bias world too terribly long.
Mm-hmm. I thought the touchdown advance was a great read. I mean, that was a great play by Rudolph.
Right. If he doesn't score, are we looking at that differently though?
Well, no one else was going to be able to get in the end zone. There was no one standing in the end zone open on that play. You throw it a yard short of the goal line, let your 250-pound tight end barrel his way in. I'm cool with that.
You find that quote there?
I'm trying to pull it up here. I mean, go vamp for a second here while I try to go one last pass through the notes.
Well, overall too, when I was I had already heard a good section of what Randy had to say in the audio part of it though, but by the time I finally got all the quotes and all like that, I was thinking to myself, man, not a lot of great questions. There are so many different other things that I would have asked other than what was asked there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't find the quote. I know you just talk about red zone, and he's talking about, field shrunk, decisions must be made quick, and you've got to be prepared to pull the trigger and live with that consequence. Just talk about Ben. Ben's been down that road so many times. There isn't any consequence. He's afraid to stand up here in front of you and the fans and his owner and his head coach, me, and say, hey, my fault. So Mason's got to get to that point where maybe the easy throw was to throw it short. Maybe we broke a tackle and scored. I think that's the reference to Van. Nice job, but boy, it was coming open behind him, and just anticipate that a little bit and be able to make that throw. So I think you'll kind of see that improve. So on the one hand, you have Randy saying, take a chance, it's okay. And then you have Mason on the same day on a different play, but saying, quote, what do you want to say here? You had a guy in the flat, that would have gotten you 8 to 10 yards. Maybe you don't get the first down, but you help out the net punt. So you got Randy talking about forcing it and taking that chance, and Mason's talking about how Randy says net punt, and it doesn't feel like they're on the same page when you hear those two things.
Yeah, and that's just us cherry picking a few things too. So we don't know what I did get to feel kind of the vision in my head of him getting his knuckles cracked, on some of these things. And I've said time and time again, I get the feeling that Mason just plays, not to make a mistake sometimes, because maybe he's been told you can't. There's no way we can win if you turn the football over. He's going to make mistakes, man. That's what young quarterbacks do. I mean, He's just got to start trusting what he's seeing a little bit more and throw it down. He's playing. I'll tell you this, and look, I understand that the quality of players on the other side of the field, the whole jump from college to pro, and the windows and yada yada. There's been times where I thought, man, is this the same quarterback? Because I just don't remember him playing as tentatively at times right now. Compared to the whole 3+ years at Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, obviously this is new for him, and we'll see what his comfort ends up being like. And just to be clear, I understand these situations aren't all black and white. There are times where you sit there and say, yeah, you got to check it down, take your profit, and punt, and that's fine. Like on the safety that he took, I referenced earlier, and there are situations where you need to thread the needle and take a shot. Late in game, you're down, let's go for it. Or you're red zone, and, hey, let's make a play. If we take a sack, that's okay too. So there are, always varying coaching points based on down, distance, game circumstance. But it felt off the way that Rudolph basically blamed himself for the interception, and then you have Randy at the same time saying, no, take chances, it's fine, go ahead and out there and kind of stick your neck out. It just felt like they're not on the same page.
And then look, I think final assessment of this Colts game anyway was that a lot of the decisions that he made checking the football down were right, I thought. Now, were there two to three times where he missed a Holton, or he missed a situation 2 or 3 times in the game where probably he could have had it, maybe not necessarily a chunk play, but 12 to 18 yards? Yeah. I think there were. And that's going to continue to happen a little bit. You just hope to see maybe a little bit less of it. But as you kind of like to say, or did say, I think on a couple of, he took a profit, on a lot of those checkdowns there. And, as at minimum on any given play, you want 4.5 yards, and if you can get 6 or more, even the better there. And I think a lot of those turned out into that. And I tell you what's kind of surprising when you go through these situational stats here with him. Mason Rudolph's not overall from a quarterback rating standpoint. He's not doing bad on third down, Alex.
Yeah. Do you have the numbers?
I can get them for you here if you want to kind of.
I know his quarterback rating overall is actually, I think it's the best in the AFC North, better than Lamar, which tells you that stat only means so much. But I will say the third down offense has been more effective the last 3 weeks, where they're now 21st overall for the year on third down when they were 28th. I think after the first 5 weeks, so they're probably about 15th or 14th over the last 3 weeks when you kind of average that out. So the third down offense has certainly improved after a really, really rocky start.
But even so, the amount of plays they're averaging per drive is not great.
Oh yeah, this offense has a long ways to go. Make no mistake about it.
He is. Let's see here. Where's Mason Rudolph on this list? I was a bit surprised when I saw kind of the raw numbers when it came to him. Okay, he's 28 of 43, 65.1%. I mean, that's pretty damn good, not knowing the context that goes along with it. 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I'm trying to remember which 2 interceptions those were.
Well, the Juju was a third down play.
Juju was one. Was the one to Dante Moncrief one, or was it the 49ers one? I'm drawing a blank there.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But 9.3 yards per attempt. That's kind of probably a deceptive number there. He has 19 first downs on. Now he's taken 5 sacks on third down, so on 48 total. Give me a percentage of 19 divided by 4. Let's say 43. Let's take away the sacks. 19 divided. No, we'll add sacks.
Well, he's got 48 attempts, doesn't he? Or no?
No, he's got 43 attempts with 5 sacks on dropbacks added in there.
Yeah, let's throw the sacks in there because that's a fair play.
So 19 divided by 48.
Just about 40%.
That's not bad.
I don't know what the rest of the league looks like, but yeah, it doesn't look awful.
And he's got a quarterback rating on that down. Now this isn't yardage specific, but 106.6. It's one of the top, I think, 10 with qualified attempts so far. But Is he throwing for the chains all the times? Is he getting bailed out on some yak here? Probably on a lot of these. You'd have to go on a play-by-play basis there. But, I think Mike Tomlin put it best when it comes to this game this week. You better not get in 3rd and 6 or longer this week.
Because that Rams pass rush is fierce. And speaking of the Rams, it's a good time to segue into our interview with Vinny Bonsignor. He covers the Rams for The Athletic. You can follow him. Vinny Bonsignor is his Twitter handle. So we'll talk to him, about a half-hour interview with him to talk about the Rams. And very, very good interview, I will say. So let's step aside, talk to him, and then come back.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday, and as promised, we have a beat writer who covers the Los Angeles Rams on with us to help us break down the Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday home game against the Los Angeles Rams. Today, we are excited to have, for first time on the show, Vinny Bonsignor, who covers the Rams for The Athletic. You can obviously read. We have a lot of Athletic beat writers on the show, especially this year. You can follow Vinny on Twitter at Vinny Bonsignor. That's BONSIGNORE. And make sure you give him that Terrible Podcast welcome. Reach out to him, follow him, read his stuff on The Athletic, and let him know you thank him for his time for coming on the podcast. Vinny, let's see, what is today? Friday. Happy Friday, and welcome to the Terrible Podcast.
Thanks a lot, guys, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, Vinny, let's start with this Rams team. Kind of interesting season so far. It started off 3 wins and then 3 losses in a row, and then back on the winning track again, back-to-back wins before going into the bye week. Obviously exiting out of the bye and coming to Pittsburgh for this game. 30,000-foot overview right now on kind of the Rams season to date. Are you kind of surprised where they're at right now? Ups and downs, just a quick synopsis of where they're at right now at the halfway point.
Well, I think they're a team that is still trying to find an identity offensively, and I think that I go right to Todd Gurley and the plan that's been put in place to keep him upright and preserved and healthy. And it was, kind of a mandate coming into the season that they weren't going to overuse him in the first half of the season, which they kind of felt like maybe they did the last couple of years and certainly last year. And obviously they saw the effects of that later on in the season when his knee basically, let him down, and he wasn't the same player in December, missed the last 2 games of the regular season, wasn't the same player in the playoffs, and the Rams wanted to avoid that. So, what do? How do you do that? You manage his workload, and you look at the numbers, and he's been used about as half as much as he had been through the first 7 games this year as he was last year. His production is way down. He's not catching the ball as much. He's not being used as much. He's not running as effectively. And I think their offense, their offensive identity, their offensive operation, everything that they're doing right now is affected somewhat by what Todd Gurley hasn't been able to do this year. And so they're going to have to try to figure that out. They're going to have to either, I think the big question right now is, did they curtail his usage through the first half of the season in order to unleash him in the second half of the season? Presumably that was the plan. But on the other hand, is he still healthy enough and able enough to be able to do that if they do unleash him? And we're not going to find that out, I don't believe, until in real time. We have to see what the game plans are looking like, what the usage rate looks like. But one way or another, they're going to have to figure out a way to run the ball better than they did in the first half, because pretty much everything that they do offensively is predicated on what they can do run-wise and the threat that they create as a result of that, and then how they utilize it to then unleash their pass game. They haven't been able to do either of those things consistently, and I think that's the reason why they're sitting at 5-3. That's why they're in 3rd place in the NFC West. That's why they're looking up at the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. And if the season were to end right now, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. So they need to rediscover that offensive identity. I think defensively, they're fine. It's a defense that I believe is strong enough to, help them go far in the playoffs again. But they just need that offense to get back up and running in a way that it had been. And it's funny, you look at the numbers, and I think they're the 8th best scoring team in the NFL. So you're thinking, well, shoot, that's not bad. That's not a bad offense. But in spite of that, when you look at it, when you watch it, when you see it on a play-by-play basis, it just looks so much different this year compared to years past. And I really believe that the primary reason is what's going on with Todd Gurley. And so it'll be fascinating for me to see how that, how that unfolds, how that changes, if it does, in the second half of the season, because I think that's going to be the key to their second half of the season.
When you look at the leader of that offense, obviously with Goff there, you go back to last season, you say, man, that's the guy that they drafted right there. Really had a fantastic looking season there, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, the Rams have this solved now. And then you get into this year, and it's been it looks like, at least on tape, feast or famine with him. You got 11 TDs, seven interceptions so far. He's been sacked quite a bit. To me, and especially on third down, I was surprised to look at his numbers on third downs. Not overly great on third downs, especially when you get into like 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 7 or long situations there. Is this an offensive line situation? Now, obviously they got two what I would consider good tackles, of course, in Whitworth on one side, there. So I don't think, but is it the interior? Is that the problem? Is that what's leading all this? Can you put your finger on why Goff has kind of had this level of inconsistency?
Well, I go right again back to the running game. I think that when you're not getting the consistent run game that they have in the past, I mean, you're talking about a team that is, I think, it's in the 20s running the ball this year. They were always top 5, top 3, in the last couple of years, with under Sean McVay and with Todd Gurley. So I think that it really does start there. And as far as the offensive line, they're not giving up many sacks. They're way down on the sacks given up. But there has been, pressures allowed. He's playing under much more pressure this year than he has in years past. I'm talking about Jared Goff. And I actually think that he's playing pretty well in spite of what the numbers might look like. He's being asked to do more with less this year than he has in the 2 years under Sean McVay. The offensive line just isn't quite as good. They had to, 2 new starters at center and left guard, replacing 2 pretty valuable veterans. Then there's been injuries along the offensive line, so there's been disruption and transition along the offensive line, and it was inevitable that there was going to be a learning curve and a transition period. But on top of that, then there's also the injuries, so it just hasn't had the stability on the offensive line that they've had in the past, and you see that in the run blocking, you see that in the pass blocking, and because of all that, Jared Goff's been asked to do a little bit more in a different way, and I think he's responded pretty well, in spite of what some of those numbers might look like. I think if you want to know why, if you want to, figure out a reason why they're 5-3, I think it's because the quarterback play is better than the numbers might suggest, and obviously I think the defense has been playing pretty well for pretty consistently. So if you can get the running game going, it's probably not going to be as good as it's been in the past, but if you could get that functioning at a higher level, I think you're going to see the numbers for Jared Goff, rise. And when that's functioning together, when they're balanced as they have typically been, that's when he usually does, the more of his damage. But again, I'm very curious to see if they can address that run game, and a lot of it has to do with Todd Gurley. But if he can't go, if he's not going to be able to deliver like he has in the past, then you're going to have to start looking more and more at a young guy like Darrell Henderson and your backup Malcolm Brown, because somehow, some way, they need to replicate more of what the run game looked like in the past than it has the first half of the season.
And boy, that Henderson looks good too.
Yeah, he got off to a little bit of a slow start out of the gate, kind of the rookie transition. But more and more over the last few weeks, he's, gotten his head into the playbook, started making that transition from college to the NFL. They're starting to trust him a little bit more, and you're starting to see that. And I'm curious to see if that carries over in the second half of the season. I almost think that it's inevitable that it will, because they're going to have to, like I said, figure out a way to get the run game up to a higher level, and he might be a big part of that.
Vinny, to go to the receivers now, Cooper Kupp might not be known as a Michael Thomas or Julio Jones, but statistically he's been one of the most effective receivers in football this year, especially on third down. No one has more receptions nor third down conversions than Cooper Kupp. I know he's a bigger guy, but he's not a special athlete. He's coming off a torn ACL last year, not missing a beat. What makes him such an effective receiver? What special traits does Cooper Kupp have to make him the focal point of this passing game?
Well, in spite of maybe the straight line speed that he that he lacks. And a funny story about that, when he ran his 40 time at the scouting combine, I think it was around a 4.6 or something like that. The Rams were basically popping champagne bottles. They didn't have a first round pick that year, and they knew that with a really good 40 time, there was no way he was going to be available to them later in the draft. But when he ran that 40, they're like, all right, he's going to slip, because people put way too much credence on the 40 time. And ironically enough, just because he doesn't have the straight line 40 speed, he's a tremendous athlete in everything else. I mean, you go back to his Senior Bowl, measurables, and I'm talking about laterally, quickly, short shuttle, all of those type of things. He was, off the charts, but because he didn't run a great 40 time, that knocked him, and silly on the NFL for all that. But the guy is just a tremendous route runner. He's tremendously smart in understanding concepts, coverages. He was a former quarterback, so he knows he can see the game from a quarterback's eyes, and he's got tremendous hands. And with the ball in his hands, the dude does damage, because he's a much better athlete than people give him credit for. And you mentioned it earlier. He's big. He's a big kid for a wide receiver. So he's put together really well. He's just a darn good football player. And so, he's been lighting it up. And there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to come back strong from the knee injury last year. I can remember talking to him later on in the season, and he was walking around fine because he attacked, his rehab like no other. And I asked him a couple of times, man, could you go out? I mean, by that time you couldn't bring him off IR because of the, he had exhausted. They had exhausted their two guys to bring back. He couldn't have, but I mean, he was looking pretty darn good towards the end of the year. So you knew that he was on target, and you knew that he was going to, he was doing everything diligently like he always does. So he's almost come back. I don't know, maybe even better. Maybe that's just because he's, a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit more of an understanding of the game. But, people missed out on Cooper Kupp. He's a tremendous football player. And there's no doubt when you look at his numbers, what he means to this team and what his loss meant last year. I'm not saying they would have beat the Patriots at all in the Super Bowl. Who knows what would have happened, but there's no doubt that he would have made somewhat of a difference, and his loss was really, really significant to them last year. And you see this year, what he means to this operation.
Absolutely. He is the catalyst. To flip the defensive side of the football, Steeler fans are familiar with midseason trades that secondary pieces with Minkah Fitzpatrick. So are Rams fans with acquiring Jalen Ramsey from the Jacksonville Jaguars. How is the addition of Ramsey a top-flight corner? Has that changed what Wade Phillips is doing schematically, or is that just making them more effective with the scheme they're already running?
No doubt. It's changed what he does schematically. It actually gets him back to what he wants to be doing. I mean, his 3-4 defense, the way he plays it is kind of predicated on having corners out there that can take care of their guys, one-on-one, at least one guy that can do that on a high level. And that just frees, other defenders up for, blitzes or whatever it is that you want to do. And just since Jalen's, been on board, you're seeing cornerback blitzes, linebacker blitzes, safety blitzes, the whole gamut, which he didn't quite see before. And nothing against Marcus Peters, a good player in his own right, but he just his skill set wasn't, really conducive to that kind of defense. He's more of a read and react player, keeping things in front of him and keeping the quarterback size in front of him and playing off of that. And he does that very well. Earlier last year, the Rams tried to play him in more of that man-to-man kind of look, and he continually got burned through no fault of his own. It's like asking, you can't expect somebody to do something that he just isn't really necessarily capable of doing. And I think Wade Phillips figured that out and kind of admitted the mistake and took it on the shoulder and said, hey, we got to fix this, and went back to a more read and react type of a defense. And that's great coaching, and it obviously helped the Rams, but you knew that for Wade's defense to function at the kind of level that he wanted it to, or at least to be able to do the things that he wanted to do. They were going to have to change that up. And you thought that, well, it was going to happen in the off season because, Marcus was in the final year of his contract. It wasn't likely that he was going to come back, but they were at least going to try to, maybe play it out with him this year. And then, lo and behold, everything happened, with Jalen in Jacksonville, and that was just like a gift for the Rams. And they obviously made a huge trade and a monumental trade to go ahead and, surrender 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick to go get him. But it's been everything that they need, and it's pretty much changed the dynamics and the personality of the defense. And they've played really well these last 2 weeks with him, and I think that's going to get even better over the next 8 weeks.
Vinny, obviously the Steelers will like to try to move Juju Smith-Schuster around, especially when they go 3 wide receiver sets or more. Do you expect, look, Nickel Roby Coleman's been around this league, bounced around the league for a while, but it'd probably be a little bit of a mismatch to have him line up on Juju, and Troy Hill's still kind of a younger dude as well too. Do you expect Jalen Ramsey to follow Juju around in this game, or will he primarily play on the one side?
Well, I think that's the great thing about having a guy like Jalen Ramsey. If you decided that that's what we want to just try to take, Juju out of the game, well, you have a weapon that can, you're not going to take Juju out. He's just too good. But you have a guy that you feel like, hey, can probably manage it pretty darn well. So I'm not quite sure. We did talk to Wade Phillips about it, and he had a little bit of a sly grin. He wouldn't go there, obviously, on giving away the game plan too much, but you suspect that you're going to see that matchup quite a bit on
right.
Sunday. I don't know if it's going to be an exclusive situation, but chances are where Juju goes, Jalen's not going to be too far behind.
Obviously, there's no such thing probably as a bad time bye week, but it gave the Rams team, time to get healthy here. Brandon Cook's obviously going to miss this game, but and they're going to get it looks like they're going to get Malcolm Brown and Clay Matthews back as well too. And Clay Matthews needs no introduction to Steeler fans. I'm sure of the time he spent with the Packers there. Excellent edge rusher there, and obviously will make Dante Fowler and the rest of that. Brocker's a big guy, and of course Aaron Donald in the middle, that much better there. So, how big of a loss is Brandon Cooks? We know they got Robert Woods over there, and obviously Cooper Kupp and all. But how big a loss is Brandon Cooks to this offense? And B, how big is it going to be for this team to get Clay Matthews back?
As far as Clay, I think that that anytime you have a weapon that you can just go, point him at the quarterback and say, go get him. It's always a good thing. And he was leading the team in sacks, prior to his unfortunate injury. He had 6 sacks, through those first, 4 or 5 games that he played before getting hurt. And so getting another guy that can rush the passer, you can't have too much of that. Now, granted, in his absence, I think Dante Fowler, started really kind of coming into his own and turning a corner. And he had always been playing pretty good since he came from Jacksonville, but he's taken it really to another level. So now to have 2 guys, on opposite sides that are, playing off number 99, Aaron Donald, and kind of taking advantage of some mismatches because of how much attention opposing offensive lines give Aaron. Now you have 2 guys that can bring it off the edge. So I think that changes things a little bit, for the better for the Rams defense. So yeah, getting Clay Matthews back is pretty big. As far as Brandon Cooks, it's a big loss, but in a lot of ways this year, because of the way the Rams are being defensed, and also some of the issues that they've had in pass protection, they've kind of it's by default he's been sort of taken out or marginalized, I should say, as a result, because he's their main deep ball threat, but they haven't been able to go to that well as often as they typically have because of some other issues that are going on. So it's a loss for them. There's no question about it. They feel really good about Josh Reynolds, kind of a taller, lankier guy that fits pretty well over there, and he's probably a starter on some other teams, but because of the depth at the wide receiver position that the Rams have and the 3 amigos that they have with Cooper and Brandon and Robert, he doesn't get as much love as he probably should. So, but they feel good anytime that somebody goes down, that you got Josh Reynolds right there to kind of plug in. So that mitigates, the Brandon Cooks loss, but it is a loss nonetheless. Anytime you have to chip away at your depth a little bit, you're just going a little bit deeper and deeper into your arsenal, and so you're not quite as good. But a loss, but not like the Cooper Cup kind of loss.
Vinny, one thing that makes the Rams so unique is with Johnny Hekker and their fakes. He's got 8 of them since 2017. What makes this such an effective punt fake team? And is there something in his backstory, or what is the case? Because that's the number one thing that sticks out with me with the Rams and Sean McVay is they will let this guy line. He lined up as a quarterback against the Falcons, I think, a couple weeks ago and completed a pass to Nick Scott. So what makes him such an effective and big-time fake punt threat?
Yeah, well, he played quarterback in high school, so he's got quarterback in his background, and that's when they were looking at him, coming out of college, Bones, their special teams coach John Fassel, knew that hey, this guy played quarterback and had a pretty good arm. Anytime you have you could have an extra tool in your toolbox. Especially when you're talking about a special teams player out there that can give you some versatility and put some pressure on a defense, and he's actually really good at it. I mean, he's pretty automatic when they dial that up. He's pretty good, and they usually get the first down that they're looking for, and a lot of times it's been a game changer type situation. So yeah, he played quarterback, so. That really, and plus you have what you also have is a really aggressive special teams coach in John Fassel, and I think a coach in Sean McVay that you trust him and believes in him, and if Bones believes that there's a way to tap into that on a particular game they're not going to be afraid to utilize it, and that goes for. The sellouts that they have on blocking punts, they're usually pretty good at that. And then, of course, Hecker's a really good punter as well. So, their special teams has been really darn good over the last couple of years. And it's been a big reason why they've won as many games as they've won. There's been games that they've won, literally, with a block punt and taking it back for a touchdown or a key first down on a fake field goal, and obviously Greg Zuerlein kicking a 56-yard field goal to kick him into the Super Bowl. From time, it just seems like game to game, time to time, that special teams comes up in a big way, in multiple ways too. So, but yeah, it's fun covering a guy like Hekker because you always know that it's going to happen at some point. They're not going to go a season without calling that, and usually they'll tap into it multiple times during the course of the season. It's just a matter of when.
Vinny, with that awesome pass rush, and the Steelers obviously a young quarterback, and an offense that's really had trouble finding any consistency, successful run rates throughout the season here. Regardless, I mean, what's the best thing for this offense to do for the Steelers? Get the ball out of Mason's hands quick. There's going to be a lot of short passes anyway. He's been kind of the king of the dink and dunk so far. Occasionally tries to stretch it down the field there, but is that the key? And I know you hear all the time, well, just wham block Aaron Donald. Well, that's easier said than done when it comes to that. But I mean, is that the key to actually beating, getting yards on this defense? Is to try to run, especially to the edges and kind of off guard against them, and then get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly?
Yeah, a little bit, and one thing that I think they've shored up a little bit from last year, I think they had some guys that were, trying to do a little bit too much in terms of getting to the quarterback, and it kind of came sometimes at the sake of run defense. And I think they wanted to clear that out and have guys that played a little more disciplined and a little bit more, assignment football on the defensive line. And I think that's really helped as far as their run defense. This is a really good tackling team. When you're talking about Eric Weddle and John Johnson before he got hurt, good young safety. Now you got Taylor Rapp, who's just been a rookie. That's just, another just really good football player and really good tackler. And you got, obviously Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers and Corey Littleton, a sideline to sideline linebacker. So, and it's a very smart defense too. So you're not going to get them out of position too much. And usually when a guy catches the ball, it's not going to necessarily go for big yardage because guys tackle in the secondary. So you have to take care of the ball against the Rams, and you have to, be disciplined on your drives. There aren't that many big plays that they give up, so you're just going to have to, again, be disciplined and mature in how you go about it, because you can make yards, you can get yards, you can gain yards, but they're going to make you try to go 13 plays and not make a mistake. And if you do, then you're going to be putting yourself in some vulnerable positions. But I think to beat the Steelers, though, going into their house, and it's going to be loud and cold, and the Rams have been talking about it all week. I don't care what the record is. When you play the Steelers, especially in Pittsburgh, you're going to have to bring your hard hat because there's a physicality to them, and a mindset to them that you have to match, or else you could get steamrolled. And they know that. They're expecting a hard-hitting, physical, vicious football game, your typical Steelers kind of mentality. But it seems like they're ready for that. And this is a big physical team themselves, the Rams, and I think that they're enjoying the fact, or looking forward to the fact, that they're going to get tested in that way, because I really believe these next few games against the Steelers and the Bears and the Ravens coming up, these are big physical teams that are, going to dictate that you be dominant and physical and nasty and tough and vicious, and if you don't, then lights out. But if you do, that's going to set a really good tone for you, moving forward. And so I think the Rams are kind of looking forward to this kind of challenge. I'm not saying they're going to win for sure, but I think that they're going to bring their hard hats too, because they know they have to.
Well, obviously, we could probably we enjoy having our beat writers on. These shows are long enough as it is, but we could really have our beat writers on for 35, 45 minutes at a time, which we're about getting close to that now. So with that, look, we didn't even hit on Eric Weddle there, but we've talked about enough about him over the last couple of years when he was with the Ravens, and anyway, so we know how smart and how crafty and how good he is at kind of helping that defense, disguise things on the back end there. So with that, I have a feeling I know which way you're going to go with this, Vinny, but we always ask our beat writers to kind of give us a prediction for the game and a final score if they will. So have at it.
Well, I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. I think that the Rams are going to have to play a disciplined game. The Steelers, turn it over or make you turn the ball over, and they're going to have to really avoid that. And if they don't, then it's going to be a long flight home back to California. But I do think that, coming off the bye, understanding the importance of getting off to the right start in the second half of the season, they still have all their aspirations and objectives in front of them and within reach, and you can't squander it, shooting yourself in the foot against a team that record-wise and maybe where they are wise, you should beat, right? And so I think the Rams understand the importance of taking care of business in this game. And it's probably not going to be pretty. I think it's going to be one of those kind of knockdown, drag-em-out games that Pittsburgh is known for, and I think the Rams are bracing themselves for it. But I do think that they do enough defensively to slow down the Steelers and do just enough offensively to make that stick. And I'm looking at like a 21, 24, 17 type of a game.
All right, great. It's going to be tough for that Steelers offense to put together some long drives. I think they're going to need a turnover or two, to be in this game a little bit. I'm kind of surprised the spread isn't a little bit bigger anyway there on that. But Vinny, look, we appreciate your time joining us on the Terrible Podcast for the first time, and hopefully this is the last time that we have you on down the road as well too. So keep us in mind the next time these two teams meet together. So once again, we appreciate it, and you can make sure we'll get the Twitter address out there, and we'll make sure the listeners go to The Athletic, the Rams portion of the website, and make sure you read Vinny's stuff at The Athletic. Vinny, once again, thanks for being on the Terrible Podcast.
Thanks, Vinny.
All right, you guys, thank you very much. You got the number, so call anytime.
And again, our thanks to Vinny Bonsignor for that great interview. First time we've had him on, Dave, but that was a ton of valuable information.
Yeah, he doesn't mind answering questions, does he? For sure, we probably could have had him on another 15 minutes or so to try to get everything that I had floating around in my head out asked about it. But yeah, good interview there, and we appreciate Vinny coming on first time guy. So make sure you get on the Twitter machine and thank those guys, so it makes it easier to try to get them back on the show at a later date.
And again, his Twitter handle is at Vinny Bonsignore, Bonsignore. Covers the Rams for the Athletics. So appreciate his time. All right, Dave, let's segue and let's talk about ourselves, this Rams game, and let's start with the Rams offense. And the thing that stuck out to me, and I was going to ask Vinny about this, but I know we kind of ran long on time, was their use of play action. I think they're very effective with it, even with a run game that isn't as fierce. I think you and I both know, and most NFL fans know at this point, you don't have to have the strongest run game in the world to be able to be successful and effective on play action. And we know that's an area the Steelers defense has struggled, particularly with their linebackers, guys get sucked up, and young coverage linebackers like Devin Bush still trying to figure things out. So I'm worried about the Rams from a play-pass standpoint and the big plays they can create off of it.
I do as well, too. I just envision a tight end running on an over route here. Somebody getting one of those linebackers getting sucked in, maybe a safety not reading something right in there, and then bam, you have Higbee on an over route, kind of similar. And don't think Sean McVay is not going to take a hard look at what he saw. I know they don't. At least it doesn't look like the Rams utilize a fullback very much, right?
Yeah, not at all.
But it doesn't mean that they can't condense down, because I think I saw quite a bit of two tight end personnel groupings in there. This is a Rams team that's not going to have Brandon Cooks this week, and I think in an effort for them to even maybe start trying to run the football better, that they might use a little bit more heavy stuff. But don't think Sean McVay's not looking at what Shanahan did, offensively, several weeks ago against the Steelers there, and trying to build off of that, creatively. And if there's one thing one adjective that describes Sean McVay, it's creative there, especially from an offensive play call standpoint there. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm worried about Goff under center, play action, and well, really any play action in this situation, because I think that it's going to be tough for the Steelers linebackers to kind of decipher this.
And in my tape, you see it a lot on 1st and 10 early in drives. The first play of drives will try to create a big play off of it. But you're right, Sean McVay, creative guy in general. Now with a bye week to have an extra week to prepare for the Steelers, I think advantage goes to him. But yeah, it's a varied run scheme. It's a very team overall. Last year they were literally about 95% of the time they were 11 personnel, one tight end, one running back, and 3 receivers on the field. And it was obviously effective and it worked and got into a Super Bowl, but it did make them pretty predictable. This year they're more varied. You're right, Dave. You're seeing more 2 and even 3 in short yard situations, tight end sets coming in. So they're not as static as they were last year. Makes you you have to prepare for more and worry about more personnel groupings and kind of how you're going to defend the different formations and stuff that they're going to bring in. So it's a run game that's not as strong. Obviously, Todd Gurley's on a pitch count here, but I think he can obviously be potent. They're going to get Malcolm Brown back, and I'm a big fan of Darrell Henderson. I know you mentioned that in the interview we had with Vinny, and Henderson honestly reminds me a lot of Marlon Mack from last week, a guy that's explosive and can create space when things aren't there.
Yeah, this is a Rams team that hasn't popped one yet either, regularly, right? You look at him, you wonder, especially with a guy like Todd Gurley, you're thinking, man, where's the big, why aren't they consistently popping more 10-yard runs? That's a hard question to answer. You got to feel like it's coming with them. They'll run. They obviously like to run. Some zone concepts, and they additionally will try to run some outside stuff, I think, as well too. And they've got a more varied selection of backs to be able to do that. As well. I'm a big fan of Henry. I really think he's doing a good job in there. And I understand, look, they're going to get Malcolm Brown back this week. So you want to talk about probably them shuttling in and out some running backs this week. That's probably going to happen Sunday in Pittsburgh.
Right, and you're right. They are a heavy zone team. They probably run more outside zone than anyone in football. Goes back to this, the whole Shanahan kind of coaching tree, and that C.J. Anderson last year. I know Steeler fans wanted to sign C.J. Anderson. They probably still do want to sign C.J. Anderson, but he was effective because he works best in an outside zone scheme, and that's what made him super effective. And with the Rams last year, and why he wasn't effective elsewhere. But they run some power too. My tendency based off my tape study is when they're under center, when Goff's under center in a single back look, it's going to be a zone scheme. When they're in shotgun, it's a power scheme. That's not 100% of the time, but that was kind of my general feel from the tape study. So under center, zone, and gun, it's going to be power.
To me, I didn't have a whole reel put together, obviously, on them running the power, but they seem a little clunkier running the power.
Yeah, they definitely are. They're the interior O-line. They're not super athletic. They're undersized, kind of some clunky guys themselves. And their bread and butter's always been zone. I think power is something they've incorporated more this year than past years. So it's something that isn't as intuitive and as baked into the cake of the offense. But they do want to try to mix things up in the run game. So yeah, I do want to point that out.
Yeah, and we haven't even hit on the passing game yet. And that guy, Cooper Kupp.
He's pretty good, and they aren't getting explosive plays in the run game. You're right, Dave, but they are getting a ton of explosive plays in the pass game, 6th most in the NFL, and a lot of that is because of Cooper Kupp, who is, I think, top 3 in receptions and yards and up there in touchdowns, and no one is a bigger threat on third down than Cooper Kupp. And as I mentioned in the interview, no one has more receptions and no one has more third down conversions this year than Cooper Kupp.
He's got some sudden quickness to him.
Yeah, it was interesting the way that Vinny talked about, the story of how the Rams were excited he ran a poor 40 time because they knew that gave him a chance to get him. I know this comparison is going to be way too strong, but the first thing that popped in my mind, maybe this is because it's Steelers Rams and I'm thinking about 1979, but I thought about John Stallworth, how he ran a really poor 40 time and it was the rain, aided it and all that, and scouts dropped him because of it, but it was good because now the Steelers could go get Lynn Swann in the first round and then get John Stallworth, I think, in the 4th round. So I'm not calling Cooper Kupp Stallworth, but it just kind of, that story reminded me of what happened back in the 70s.
You probably had to see it, I think, on going through the tape like I did, but he can get in and out of them breaks on them angle routes, man, and get instantly within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. He can have himself 2 to 3 yards of separation in there. That's scary because this guy, he's like Juju, but really a little bit more athletic, overall athletic version of Juju. I mean, he's big and strong, and he can run. He's got a nice suddenness to him off of the line of scrimmage. Very impressive wide receiver. And obviously this is a guy that the Steelers are going to have to worry about the most in this game. And look, Woods isn't a slouch, but they're not going to have Brandon Cooks in this game. They'll have the who is it? Josh Reynolds, I think, is probably a guy that's going to see a little bit of playing time with Brandon Cooks out here. But make no mistake, especially on third down, man, you better have Cooper Kupp covered, and you're obviously not gonna shut him down in this game. So what's an acceptable? If you held this guy to under 100 yards, I think you really got to take your hat off and hand it to yourself.
Yeah, I don't have a specific goal in mind in terms of a number. I want to keep him out of the end zone. I know that's where I want to start, but I think on third down stats, the third down stats will be big. If you can try to take him away on third down, do some specialty coverage things, that would be, I think, vital because they scheme everything for Cooper Kupp on third down. They run a lot of levels concepts, and they like to get him middle of the field on some of these deep 15, 20-yard dig routes and be able to run some window dressing underneath to keep those linebackers shallow to let the throw over the top happen. So they scheme it well, and he's a great receiver. And I think you said it well. He's kind of like Juju, but maybe even a more athletic version of Juju. So he's going to be a big challenge.
I'm trying to remember. I'm not good with player comparisons overall. I'm trying to think of who else maybe he kind of reminds me of.
There aren't a lot of those big slottish receivers. You could talk about Anquan Bolden, but I don't think
that's the first thing.
Yeah.
That ran through my mind was maybe Anquan Bolden. Year 2, year 3 Bolden.
Yeah, I don't know if he's quite as physical. He's not as physical as Bolden was, but yeah, that bigger slot guy that can move, especially Bolden in the early years. Yeah, maybe a Larry Fitzgerald light kind of thing too. You go with those old Cardinals receivers too.
Yeah, I tell you, when talking to Vinny, too, and I guess getting on kind of into quarterback play here. Look, they'll try some misdirection stuff. They'll have guys coming across the formation, post snap kind of things, and try to catch you to try to get some of these guys like Woods and obviously Cooper Kupp out in space and those kind of things. But what kind of surprised me was how. What have you thought of Goff's play so far this season?
I know the stats don't look great. There's a regression there. The offensive line hasn't probably done him a whole lot of favors. He's under 60% completion percentage in 4 straight games. He's got, the touchdowns and interception ratio is not where you want it to be. But I think the tape looks better than what the numbers would suggest. Granted, to be fair, I watched a lot of Falcons and Bengals tape, so that probably skews it a little bit. Those are some of the worst defenses in football, so that's probably an important caveat.
All right, and I'm trying to share a stat here, and I'm not getting what the results that I want for what I dialed up here for some reason here. But it's about his third down and long stats here. Let's see here. That only shows completed. Why is that only showing I must have checked something off here.
On Goff's third down stats?
Yeah, Goff's third and 6 or longer.
Okay.
Hold on a minute. I know. I've got yards gained. That's why. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm interested to see what the numbers are on third and long. What's their third down offense overall? Let me pull up that number. They are 15th overall on all third downs, about a 40% clips, and they're 13th in the red zone. So average there. Do you have the?
I have them back up here now. I had the wrong info here. Let me see if I can find where Goff is now on this list to rattle. I was a little bit surprised overall when I saw these numbers. I'm sorry, my eyes are bad here. Okay, 23 of 40. Okay, this is third and 6 or longer. Okay, with Goff, 23 of 45. 51.1% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 6 sacks on those downs, just a 77.7, 16 total first downs out of, get ready to give me some math here. 16 divided by
51.
51.
So 31.4%. And Rudolph was at 40% for context.
And for some reason I thought I had these sorted the other time by 6 to 10 only, because I think he converted, had some sort of weird couple of dump offs or whatnot that should have been tackled. I know we're cherry picking it there at that point there. Hold on, and I'll give you what this says on this one here. I know there was something that stuck out. I said, man, that looks bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do that really quick.
14 of 34. Okay, this is 6 to 10 yards only on third down. 14 of 34, which is 41.2% completion percentage. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks, 12 first downs, a quarterback rate of 54.4. So divide 12 by
37.
32.4%.
Woo. Not good.
Not good. So that's kind of what stuck out to me there. Look, get pressure on the guy, and the Steelers pass rush should be able to get pressure on him. The key is get him in those 3rd and 6 or longer situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where you want any quarterback to be. I was on a Rams podcast earlier in the week, and they said the real weakness is going to be that right tackle spot with Rob Havenstein. I haven't watched the line super closely, but they said the matchup that really scares them, similar to last week with Watt versus Braden Smith of the Colts, is that Watt's going to really take Havenstein to school. So that might be the matchup advantage for Pittsburgh.
I think there's a good option. But look, Watt's playing outstanding this year. I mean, and look, Whitworth is a good left tackle as well too. But he is a little bit older now, and I look. Dupree's playing good right now too. If there was a game that you're glad that both of your guys are coming into this, both your outside linebackers are healthy and on top of their game right now, it's right now, and that should you mix that along with the way the interior guys like Cameron Hayward and Javon Hargrave are playing in the interior here. I really like we'll talk all week about that Rams front. Boy, how good are they? That Aaron Donald, got to watch out for him. Concerns there. You know what? They ought to be concerned about this Steelers defensive front.
Absolutely. And the way that Dupree handled Costanzo last week, yeah, I think he can take on Whitworth. Not only is Whitworth old, he's the oldest lineman in football, still playing at a high level, and props to him. I think he's been a consistent and just great player in Cincinnati and then in LA. But yeah, I think Dupree can win that matchup.
Yeah. But yeah, it starts with obviously shutting down that running game early. And another thing is that they haven't done a lot of this year that they've done in previous years. Getting Todd Gurley involved a little bit more in that passing game down the field. You know, when is that going to happen?
Right. Yeah, not a lot. I think 15 catches this year. Did have a touchdown on a wheel route against, I forget it was Atlanta or Cincinnati, but they just haven't played him a lot. I mean, he's got 92 carries in his first 8 games this year. He had 144 at this point last year. So just not as much involvement for him, but we'll see if that ramps up as this, coming off the bye and as the playoff race kind of starts to form. Last thing I want to note with them is, especially off of bye week, but though I couldn't find any evidence of this in previous years, but watch out for the trickery because the Rams, before the bye, they ran a reverse flea flicker for a 65-yard touchdown to Cooper Kupp that worked really well, and no one runs more fake punts than the Rams. We talked about that with Vinny a little while ago, where Johnny Hekker has 8 fake punts, most of them converted since Sean McVay was hired back in 2017, a former quarterback. So if I'm Danny Smith, I'm not doing a punt rush. I'm playing it safe every single time because you just never know when they're going to fake. And I tried to go through their tendencies to try to find some sort of commonality of when they would run a fake, and I really couldn't find anything. I mean, it comes kind of at all points in the game. So usually it's a one-score game, usually down by a score, second, third quarter, but that's still pretty loose. So just be very, very aware of the fake.
We haven't even really talked much about Gerald Everett. And that's a guy that, especially with Cooks out now, and especially with them using, liking to use these more of these kind of two tight end sets here. And look, the Steelers have not been great about defending tight ends this year, right?
Right. Yeah, not at all.
Everett could be a guy that we should worry about here and talk a little bit about.
Yeah, anything else you want to mention about him, or do you want to flip to the
defense? No, he is a guy that can get downfield and move tight end, kind of typical Ebron-ish, I guess, kind of player, a guy that can hurt you in a heartbeat, especially in the red zone. So, once again, they're not going to have Brandon Cooks, who technically kind of their deep threat, but I don't view that as a crippling loss for them by any stretch of imagination. Just going to mean you're going to see a little bit more in Josh Reynolds in this game, and when he's not in, like Alex had said too, they're using more 2 tight end sets in this game. So.
And don't sleep on Reynolds. I liked him coming out of college a lot, and he caught a jump ball against the Bengals at 3 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown. So don't sleep on any of those weapons. Real quick interruption, and then I'm going to talk to the Rams defense. Minor thing, L.J. Fort signs a 2-year extension with the Rams, pays him $5.5 million. So good for L.J. Fort.
You mean the Ravens?
Oh, yeah, I said the Rams. I apologize. Yeah, the Ravens.
Ain't that something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good for him. He played well. He's playing well out there.
Yeah. The Steelers just couldn't keep him in the fold.
Yeah, well, they could have if they played him, but you put Arthur Moats in front of him, you put Sean Spence in front of him, I would leave too if I was LJ Fort.
You know who would it sure would have made with the whole Gilbert thing and all like that. You wouldn't. I tell you what, you wouldn't have Spillane on the roster right now.
Mm-hmm. If you had LJ Fort,
yeah,
still. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Oh, well, but that's the update for LJ Ford. Anyway, let's flip to the Rams defense now. It all obviously starts with Aaron Donald. I think this defense is so much more than Aaron Donald, but you can't talk about the Rams defense without talking about the best defensive player in football.
Well, that guy, I don't even know where to start with him. I mean, obviously, Steeler fans a lot of them are Pitt fans, so they should know a lot about him as well too. That guy just, you run out of superlatives sometimes with him. Even in double teams, the way he's able to get through some of those, the built-in leverage. I mean, that guy is so quick off the football. The built-in leverage there with the stature, the strength. I mean, you have to get 2 bodies on him as much as possible and just pray for the best. I mean, even some of your top centers in the league you struggle with him. They move him up and down the line. It doesn't matter if you use him on the outside against the tackle one-on-one. He wins so many ways. It's incredible. So, Yeah, the best. You hear people say, well, you got to wham blocking. The best way to defend Aaron Donald is to get away from him as fast as possible. So that means quick passes, maybe some runs to the outside. Try to turn him and explode to the line of scrimmage with a quick back and just get past him one way or the other as soon as possible. As not so much trying to block him for a long period of time, if that makes sense.
No, I agree, but it also starts with knowing where he's at because he lines up all over the front. And that's why I said earlier trying to move Fowler to left guard, if that was the goal, it's kind of silly because Donald can line up everywhere. He's not going to be just in the 3-tech spot. He's going to line up over nose. He's going to line up at end. He's going to line up at both sides. I mean, they will move him around in an effort to try to eliminate some of those double teams or exploit weaknesses along the offensive line. So he's a guy that not only is great anywhere on the field, but the fact that he's being used anywhere on the field. And he's going to line up all over that Rams front.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've seen in the past great interior defensive linemen, but the thing when controlling those guys, if you do focus have a lot of your focus on double teaming them, which you're going to have to do a lot of throughout the game anyway, is how are other defenses built to take advantage of the one-on-one matchups that they present when you try to spend all your time and effort handling Donald. And that's when you get into the Rams with guys like Brockers and Fowler, and now you're getting Clay Matthews back from the jaw injury this week. That's a load, man. That's a load. They're going to you had Matthews leading the team, I think, in sacks prior to him going down. You have a Fowler that
leads the team right now in sacks.
Yeah, that leads the team right now in sacks. I mean, these guys are outside linebacker. I mean, it's a great duo that they had. These guys can get off the football, and that makes it even more of a head scratcher of, man, why would you want your Kwame Okorafor in there playing one of the tackle spots without the experience that he has because these guys are so great? I mean, there's another thing that makes you say, no way in hell they don't have Matt. And to Matt Filer's credit, he's played extremely well this season. You got to kind of worry about him in this game, even at right tackle, I think,
Well, I think he has played really well, but I understand the concern because Fowler's going to be a pretty unique matchup because it's a group that's effective across the board. Again, more than just Aaron Donald. 23 sacks on the year, 6.5 from Fowler, 6 from Matthews, 5 from Donald. They are fourth in football with a 28% pressure rate, and they are not blitzing. They're blitzing about 25% of the time. That's 22nd in the NFL, so they are getting pressure without having to send extra bodies, and so they can drop 7 into coverage, rush 4, get after it. That is a good place to be as an NFL defense.
We've seen the Steelers this year maximize being able to get pressure with 3 or 4 guys, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That really changes your defense when you don't have to manufacture pressure. And we've seen the Steelers have to do that over the years, right? 5 and 6 guys and just hope the back end holds up and the blitz doesn't get picked up. The Rams are able to manufacture pressure with 3 or 4 guys, and then you throw in, they got this guy named Jalen Ramsey. I don't know if you heard of him. What a great. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that makes a 3 or 4 man rush look even better. It's him, and you're going to see him on Juju, I suppose, a lot in this game. Eric Weddle, we're not going to have time to talk a lot about Eric Weddle right now, but we've talked about him enough over the years, how smart and crafty of a safety he is. Nickel Roby Coleman, not a premier nickel guy when you think of nickel guys, but a guy that's got experience in there, as well. So it's going to be tough sledding for the Steelers offense against this Rams defense.
It will. Last point with the run game, they are third in the NFL in yards per carry allowed, just 3.6 yards per carry. They haven't given up more than 20 points their last 3 games, including holding a good 49ers offense to exactly 20 points. And then with the pass game, they don't allow big plays in general. Only 18 completions of 20-plus yards this year. That's 4th in football. Ramsey's going to travel with Juju, absolutely. And you have Wade Phillips as a DC. I mean, it's like when Dick LeBeau would get a young rookie quarterback or a young quarterback in general. You meant, okay, that's advantage Dick LeBeau. Obviously, Rudolph's not a rookie, but still, you have a long-time DC and a great one in Wade Phillips against a young quarterback in Mason Rudolph. that is clearly advantage Wade Phillips.
And since acquiring Ramsey, he's able to do more of the things that he likes to do. Put his corners out there on an island. So yeah, I mean he's back. He's got to be happy as a pig in the slop right now. 'Cause, he's got a healthy defense again, and he's able to. This is a different Rams defense than the one that they had just prior to the bye.
Definitely. They're a man-heavy team, but really, I mean, it's interesting to go through these scouting reports, watch other teams. Basically, everybody plays majority man coverage these days. You can get them into cover 3 if you line up 2-by-2. If you go 3-by-1, 3 receivers to one side, 1 receiver isolated to the other, which is how the Steelers usually align. They're going to play cover 1 most of the time, but if you do go 2-by-2, you can probably get them in cover 3. That might be the way to kind of shake some of the man coverages going 2-by-2.
Yeah, and in the instances that you do get to cover 1, you're going to have to try to take some shots. You're going to have James Washington win against that who is it, Hill?
Troy Hill, yep.
On the other side, of whoever you can get. If you can get Juju for some reason lined up on Hill in a single high look, you better drop what you're doing and try to throw it.
But assuming the Ramsey's going to be on Juju most of the day, it's going to be dependent on guys like Deontay Johnson and James Washington and Vance McDonald stepping up and making plays, because it's going to be hard to attack Juju if Ramsey's covering him.
Right, and Weddle's going to pay a little bit more attention, probably cheat a little bit to that side anyway there. So you're going to have these wide receivers probably not named. This could be another 3 for 27 game for Juju.
Yep.
And you're going to need somebody on the other side, a receiver not named Juju making plays for you.
In terms of the weaknesses, because I know we've kind of put the Rams here on a pedestal, with the run game, they are running a lot of dime and sub-package football. They have Corey Littleton at middle linebacker, who's a good linebacker, but other than that, they don't have a whole lot. They got a guy, Troy Reader, UDFA rookie, that has barely played this year, has not played well, so they've used Taylor Rapp, one of their high draft picks, as kind of a dime backer. He was a safety at Washington, a hard hitter, but I think it does create a chance to run on the interior in the run game, because you can swallow up Rapp with those guards and centers. So if I was, I know that run defense is tough, but I think you can get downhill on it, get interior, and try to take on some of the sub-package stuff that the Rams are going to play. That's probably your best key to have a chance to run the ball effectively.
Yeah, but it starts with handling Brockers and Donald in the middle there,
Of course.
And
how would you attack this Rams defense? I mean,
man, I'd try to get out on the edge on them, man.
You think? I don't know. I think with the speed they have, they're a fast flow group. They got rapid linebacker, a safety running sideline to sideline. I get it, but I haven't seen a whole lot of success on perimeter runs.
I would try to pin and pull them or whatever.
Creating gaps for Donald to shoot through. You better get that down block. You're gonna pull.
That's the only way I see them properly executing and having success in the run game is out on the edge. I know it's dicey, and all like that, but if you block it up right, I just think you have a better chance at hitting a home run. Look, they're gonna need a couple of 10 plus yard runs. You can have a successful run rate on 1st and 10 in this game of gaining 4 to 5 yards on runs and still not be satisfied with your running game.
Sure, you want big plays. You got to get big plays somewhere. It's going to be hard to do in the pass game. The run game better supplement that.
So I think you're going to have to chunk them. Not only in the passing game, but you're going to have to chunk them in the run game. And I think the only way you're going to chunk them in the run game is around the edges.
Yeah, I understand. I hear what you're saying. All right. Anything else from the defense? The special teams, they got a good kicker in Greg the Leg, and Hecker is one of the best punters in football. In addition to the face, he can just flat out boot the ball. So they have a chance to, kind of like the Ravens, they can really, steal points and flip field position.
Blah, 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 red zone. You better, if you get down in there, you better come away with 7 with that. And you're going to have to get some short fields in here somehow, some way.
Yeah, you have to win the turnover battle again. Do it 8 straight games. But, Rams' third down defense is only average. Their red zone defense is pretty average, too. So they aren't great there. So that kind of is a little positive for the Steelers, who are struggling in the red zone and have only been okay on third down.
I guess the only other kind of thing to maybe point out is what they have, like 6 interceptions on the season, and how many fumbles
They forced 10 fumbles this year, which is a lot. It's come from 8 different players, but they do only have 6 picks this year. 2 of them by Marcus Peters, who's now been traded to Baltimore. But Jalen Ramsey obviously is the guy that can take the football away. And Steeler fans know that all too well.
Right. So if there's a plot, but we have seen, the Steelers are averaging more than one a game, right?
Turnovers, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You just
It'll be tough.
Yes, it definitely is going to be tough there, but don't give them anything easy, man. Don't let them house one or something. If you're going to turn the football over, I guess turn it over in the deep in the Rams territory there and make them try to drive the field. But you don't get the kind of warm and fuzzies here, Alex, that the Steelers are going to have 75-yard touchdown drives.
Right. We are not painting a super rosy picture here. But the Rams defense, to be fair, has given up some big plays. They gave up 55 points to the Buccaneers. I mean, that was before Jalen Ramsey, sure. But the teams have been able to exploit this defense before.
Yeah, BA go 4 verticals.
Yeah, it might be required. But I really think it'll come down to guys like Deontay Johnson and Washington continue to make big plays because I just can't see Juju having a huge impact unless he gets, like you said, on Troy Hill for a couple plays.
All right. We've already burned up a lot of time here. Should we talk about our folks at MyBookie and get into our picks?
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Let's see. Alex, are you the type of fan that knows football so well that you could choose any game and call it? Certainly you're that guy, right, Alex? Well, MyBookie is a place for you because they let you turn all your sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Between football season, NBA, and the start of college basketball season, it's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action with MyBookie. If you're the kind of guy or girl who likes to bet a little and win a lot, try a parlay. For instance, if you like a couple of the big favorites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout percentage. So if you're going to bet this season, do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag because no one gives you more ways to win. Tired of watching the games from the couch with nothing to gain? MyBookie wants to get your mind off everything else and back on the game. If you join right now, new promotion, MyBookie will match your deposit halfway, all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $2,000, you get an extra $1,000 in free money to play with. Just use promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible to activate the offer. Once again, that's promo code TERRIBLE to take advantage of MyBookie's generous sign-up offer. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid. And I did not get. I thought I had me one. I thought I had the man back in my sights last night, Alex. After San Diego went down there in the third quarter fourth quarter, Los Angeles went down there in the third quarter to take the lead, but credit to the Raiders, they marched right back down the field, got a touchdown. Not only that, the kicker missed the extra point, which really took any chance of me covering the 2 at that point, because at that point you're thinking, okay, either they score a touchdown and cover or that they bring this thing into overtime. Once the extra point was missed anyway, that kind of took the wind out of my sails. And I guess if there's anything whatsoever, boy, the Chargers, man, they pretty much got to run they got to at least win 5 of their last 6 to get in.
But no one Chargers like the Chargers losing close games. So let's hope our other picks are better than what happened last night.
And Alex and I both had the Chargers last night minus the 2 on the road, and that failed. Kansas City Chiefs at Tennessee Titans. The Titans at home. Mahomes supposed to be back for this one. Titans +7 at home.
Yeah, with Mahomes back, give me Casey.
You know what? Give me the Titans to cover this. I think Chiefs win this, but I think the Titans keep it close enough there. So give me the Titans +7. Oh boy, Buffalo Bill. What Browns team are we going to get this week? What Bills team are we going to get this week? Bills got a good record going into Cleveland this weekend. You want to talk about must-win games the rest of the way for Cleveland? That's it for them right now. Cleveland at home laying 2.5. Are you buying it?
I don't know. I've been trying to buy it, but give me Buffalo. I think that defense is just a lot stronger. They're a more consistent, stable team.
I smell, to me, for some reason, this, I know the whole 3-point thing and all like that. I smell a rat here. Give me the Browns at home to beat the Bills by a field goal. In other words, I think they're going to cover here. Arizona on the road against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay laying 4.5 at home against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I don't feel too good about this one. Tampa Bay's been so up and down. Give me Tampa Bay, but I don't feel particularly confident about this one.
Boy, over-under on this one's 52 total points, Alex. Give me Tampa Bay at home with you. Give me Tampa Bay at home, cover to 4.5. The Battle of New York, Escape from New York. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
Kurt Russell,
You know that by now.
Snake Plissken. Oh, my God, Alex. You got to run out and rent that one tonight. Escape from New York. The worst thing about Escape from New York is they made a second Escape from L.A. That some movies should never be made. That's one of them. Oh, man, you want to talk about you like action movies, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, you got it. You got to rent Escape from New York sometime. The Battle of New York. People want to make sure I keep you kind of aware of these kind of things, Alex. Here, get you up to speed on some of them. The Jets at home +3. I'm kind of like a dog tilting my head sideways right here.
Yeah. Against the Giants, right?
Right.
Okay, just making sure. Give me the Giants. I think Daniel Jones has shown a little bit, maybe more than what Darnold's doing this year. I don't know. The Jets seem like just such a mess. I'm not loving this one, but I'll go with the Giants.
What's going to happen to Adam Gase after this year?
He should be fired immediately. I expect that he will be, but I can't guarantee it because of kind of how chaotic their situation is.
Boy, what a mess over there. I think the Giants are the more stable here. Barkley versus Le'Veon Bell. Bell kind of having some knee soreness now.
Right.
Give me the Giants, lay the 3 on the road. Falcons at the Saints. Just last year, this would have been maybe a 5-star matchup. Want to see now the Saints at home, favored by 14.
Oh, that is a big line, but man, that Falcons defense is just garbage. With Drew Brees back in the fold, I'm going to go with the Saints.
I'm going to go with the Saints. Well, that's a big line, only because this one's in New Orleans in the Superdome there. I'll take the Saints -14. Oh, ho-hum. No, it doesn't look like A.J. Green's going to make it back. You can bet your butt he'll make it for a Steelers game, though.
Yeah, right.
But it doesn't sound like any A.J. Green. Not that it would help much of anyway, but it would be nice to see the Bengals have him against the Ravens. Regardless, Ravens on the road, favored by 10.5 over the Bungles.
Ryan Finley's debut without A.J. Green against the Ravens defense. Yeah, I'm going to go with, what's the line? I didn't catch it.
10.5.
I'm surprised it's not larger, to be honest with you. Give me Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't see how the Bengals. There's part of me that wants, I guess, to call the upset here, but there's just no way I can do that. I can't even muster enough courage to call for a close game. Ravens covered the 10.5. Panthers at the Packers. Looks like Cam Newton done for the season here. Green Bay looked kind of clunky that last time out. I thought Green Bay -5.
I think the Packers will right the ship. I think it was kind of a wake-up call. Kyle Allen's come back to earth a little bit. As much as I love Christian McCaffrey, should certainly be in the MVP conversation. I'm going to go Green Bay by touchdown.
Yeah, I think Green Bay's defense will be the difference here for them. Give me Green Bay lay the 5 in this one. Detroit Lions at Chicago Bears. Oh, how the mighty have fallen! How the mighty Mitch Trubisky has fallen. Boy, you see something. Look, Mason Rudolph doesn't have a great ESPN QBR right now either. But if you're someone like Mitchell Trubisky at this point in your career and you got a QBR as low as he is, there's something's going on there. Bears, even though I wasted all that energy there. Bears -2.5 against the Lions at home.
Feel pretty confident Lions are going to take this one, even with the run game still finding itself. A lot of injuries in the backfield. Stafford's playing well. Kenny Galladay's having some good reps, good weeks here. And then Matt Nagy, guy that may be on the hot seat right now. We didn't think it would be coming into this year, but Trubisky's a mess. The run game's a mess. Kicking game still has not been totally figured out. I know that defense is decent, but I'm going Detroit.
I had to pick up J.D. McKissick in a nice fantasy league.
Well, I got Ryan Finley in the Falcons defense in my 20-teamer, so pray for me.
Give me the Lions plus the 2.5 on the road against the Bears. Miami. It looks like Brissett going to be okay. Good for him. Dolphins on the road against the Colts, looking to rebound from their loss to the Steelers. Colts been in a lot of close games this year. Do they get the blowout here? Minus 11.5 at home against the Dolphins.
I think they do. I mean, I've talked about the Dolphins. I'm really happy they got their win last week against the Jets. I know that maybe fans don't love that because of the whole draft position thing. But I think the Colts, you saw how good of a team they were last week to lose their quarterback early in that game, not miss a beat, and still almost beat the Steelers. So I think the Colts responded in a big way with a 14-point victory.
I do too. I think they got a. They're playing better this year than I thought they would be without. And look, I had a lot of respect for Brissett ahead of this, but he doesn't turn the football over,
Right.
And if you don't turn the football over, you're gonna be in a lot of these games. Give me the Colts to blow out the Dolphins here, late 11.5. I think Alex and I going step for step on a lot of these.
I think the Tennessee game was the only one we've disagreed on. So
yeah, I think. No, I had the Browns covering. I think, didn't I? Or no?
Did you?
I think the first two we were different on, and other than that, I think we've been step here. Minnesota at Dallas. Dallas at home, laying 3 against the Vikings.
That's a tough one. I'm going to go Dallas in this one just because, I think they can shut down the Vikings' run game or at least slow it down. I have no Adam Thielen. I know the Treadwell's playing better, but it's just hard to trust Kirk Cousins in that Vikings offense. You never know what version of it you're going to get. So give me Dallas.
I sure need a Monty Cooper this week as well, too, and he's battling some sort of kind of
knee
issue right now as well, too. But you know what? I think the Vikings can pull an upset off on this one on the road there. Give me the Vikings on the road against Dallas plus the 3. And that is that's the Sunday night game, so that should be entertaining. And the Monday night game this week should be entertaining as well, too. Seattle at the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco at home, favored by 6.
Ooh, man, that is going to be a great matchup.
The undefeated San Francisco 49ers.
All right, the last one remaining. Who's going to have the better rushing attack? I'm going to say Seattle covers. I'm not sure if they're going to win, but I do think that they're going to cover.
You rat. I wanted to take the cover, but yeah, that's the way I'm going here as well too. I'm not sure Seattle wins this one, but I think they can. Russell Wilson and company can keep it close there. For sure. So give me Seattle plus the 6 points here on the road. I'm with Alex on this one. That brings us to, drumroll please, Los Angeles Rams at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The 4:25 game at Heinz Field. It started off about 3.5 and risen a little bit here. The Rams on the road favored by 4. So that means, real technically about a touchdown favorite here. What you got?
Yeah, still with that Steelers offense, it's still hard to trust. And obviously it's hard. I don't think anyone trusts it right now. And that defense is playing so well. I recognize that. I guess my thought process, what is the bigger weakness? The Steelers offense or the Rams offense, or, I guess they're pretty comparable. So the long story short is I think the Rams are more balanced. They don't have the more glaring weakness as the Steelers do, where their offense is really struggling and still trying to find itself right now. I think off the bye week, they're a healthier team. Steelers are so banged up across the board. So long story short here, I think the Rams get a big play or two off play action, and they're going to win this one 27-17.
Wow. I have the Rams covering as well on this one. I just continuing to ask your defense to get the turnovers and set you up in good situation. At some point, man, you got to do it yourself offensively, and I worry about the Steelers offense facing a lot of long fields in this one. Mm-hmm. If they could get some short fields, they're going to have to, I think, to win this ball game. I'm not convinced that's going to happen in this one. So in short, I have the Rams winning this one 24-17. So a 7-point game, just as probably it should be this one. Rams beating the Steelers. The good thing is if you win this one, it's an out of conference game. This isn't a must-win game. It's one you'd like to win, but it's not a must-win, based on the way the rest of the schedule filters out here. So if you're going to maybe pick one of these next, say, 4 or 5 games to lose, Alex, I think it's this one. And I think they do wind up losing this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. If there's one to drop, it is this one. But if they win it, then that's obviously huge for the feeling and the confidence I'm going to have the rest of the way.
What does it mean if they win this one? I mean,
It means the offense has gotten better because I can't see that the offense struggling the way it did last week and then win again.
all right. Let's see. You ready to get to some emails here?
Yeah, let's do maybe 3 or 4 because we're running pretty long on time with the beat writer today. But let's do it.
All right, Kurt, curious, this one, JC, where is your own personal hook? What kind of poor outing would it take for Rudolph to have a change made? Worst case scenario might be 500 ball with Landry-like mediocrity to end of the season. So I guess he's wanted rooting for Duck or whatnot. So when are you pulling Mason?
I don't think about that. It's not something I spend any time really worrying about. If you get in game and you see it, I probably wouldn't make any changes till a halftime if it was that bad, So I don't think about that too much. It's just going to be based on how things look exactly. I can't put a stat or a production or a number to it. It would just be an eye test thing. But I'm not in a rush to bench Rudolph.
Yeah, I'm not either. Look, to get him a hook from the game, it would have to be one of those. 3 interceptions, laying on his back 6 times. Kind of, let's get the guy out of here. We're losing by 28. Nothing's good's going to come out of by leaving him. And even then, I start him the next week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kind of thing. Jared Taylor writes in, hello, Dave and Alex. In an alternate life, where you get to work in the NFL, what position would you like to coach? I'm guessing Alex works with DBs and Dave works with edge guys. Every year at the draft, Dave tries to get the GM to take 6 edge rushers and 1 tight end. He's got me pegged.
He's got you pegged. I think I'd go a little different. I'd be special teams. I think that should be the answer. I want to coach. Let me coach those guys up. I'll coach Rosie Nix.
Get you some bubble gum.
Yeah, I'll chomp away with Danny Smith. I got an article coming out tomorrow on Danny Smith. It's not going to be too kind to him. So
it is.
About that. No, I promise you it's not. The numbers aren't looking too good.
Jonathan Mason writes in, Alex and Dave, pertaining to the reports about the O-line changes in practice, I thought the media members that attend practice weren't allowed to release specifics such as this. Am I wrong about this? Obviously, this kind of information will make it to the Rams with plenty of time to prepare for it necessary. Thanks. Here's the thing. They can't talk about it, but they got the guys to talk about it. So you can report it if you ask a question, I saw you at left guard there. Were you at left, and they say that they worked at left guard. Well, you can report that. But they just can't blindly observe, let's say for some God-known instance, B.J. Finney was getting work at fullback this week.
Mm-hmm.
They're not supposed to report about that unless they get somebody to confirm that he's taking snaps at fullback.
Correct. It's not like training camp, but you can just free for all. You have to ask someone and get an answer from them.
So that's what. And look, we're as Alex and I talked earlier in the show, we're not really sure what way this is going to play out right now with this.
I still feel pretty confident it's going to be Finney at left guard. I think this is just an emergency thing to get guys reps. Because if there's an injury, then they're going to have to shuffle.
Right, I would hope so. Our buddy Ashley Bright writes in, Dave, you and Alex are the best and most entertaining duo in the business. That's pretty strong. Look, did you see what Stephen A. Smith gets per year?
Yeah, what is it? $8 million?
$8 million. What am I worth?
You're priceless.
Careful.
You're priceless.
Careful. And what are you worth? If just crazy. Thanks, Ashley. 2 questions. Question number 1. You two recalling the 2018 Steelers draft class made me look up wide receivers selected after James Washington. Most notable were DJ Chark, pick right after Washington. Michael Gallup, 20 picks after Washington in the 3rd round. Traquan Smith, 31 picks after Washington in the 3rd. And Antonio Callaway, 44 picks later in the 4th round. How do you think Washington's career is stacking up against those players to date? I still believe in him and love this kid, but want to get your quick thoughts on him. I'll tell you what, I remember writing on Twitter, and I think talking on the podcast as well too. I was a Chark fan.
Yeah, he's finding success down in Jacksonville, and I like Gallup in Dallas. I might take Gallup over Washington. That might be it. but I haven't studied those guys enough. And I'm happy with where Washington's at. I think the last 2 weeks have really shown what he can do and what potential he can bring to this team.
Yeah, look, you can have we had a grow-up moment with Washington last week there, putting together back-to-back games, a game similar to the one he had last week. I think it would be a huge data point in his career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, real quick, Dave. We got a question here from David O. He sent an email to me with a question for the Friday for the Friday podcast. He says Mason Rudolph still a work in progress, but how would he stack up with the quarterbacks drafted in the first round of 2018? So you got Mayfield, Darnold, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Rosen. So where would you put Rudolph in that group? He's above Rosen, I assume, at the very least.
Yeah. Man, Mayfield's had, for the amount of games that Mayfield started right now, it's not all his fault. I mean, he's had some interceptions that have gone off other players or whatnot. Would I put Rudolph ahead of Baker Mayfield right now? No. Darnold has shown some nice things, that you look for in first-round quarterbacks. He just hadn't put it all together yet. Who am I? Lamar Jackson I don't know how you can compare Lamar Jackson to Mason Rudolph because they're two tremendously different quarterbacks. I'll tell you this: Jackson's throwing the ball really well, a lot better than what I thought he would have done so far at this point of his career. I haven't watched a lot of Josh Allen yet. Of course, we will later on in the season, so I don't feel right talking about him because I just haven't watched a lot of him.
All right, here's how I have it ranked. You tell me if you would move anything around. This is just best quarterback play. I understand guys are different styles, but just top quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Mason Rudolph, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. That's how I have it ranked.
Read them off again.
Lamar, Baker, Josh Allen, Rudolph, Darnold, then Rosen.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put Rudolph ahead of Darnold.
I thought from a mental toughness, and I know the whole ghost thing, that was overdone by the media and they kind of ran with it, and I don't think that was ideal, but I do think Rudolph has shown more mental toughness and some consistency than Darnold, who's looked just straight terrible in his second year. It's some points where you shouldn't be that bad, even with all the lack of talent around you.
Really, the only one I'd put Rudolph ahead of, I think, is Rosen.
Yeah, you make a case for Darnold for sure, but maybe I'm being a little too prisoner of the moment with how bad it has been for the Jets right now because the stability simply hasn't been there. But I did think from a toughness and poise standpoint, I think Rudolph's shown better than Darnold. That's why I put him ahead of Darnold. But yeah, you couldn't put Rudolph ahead of Josh Allen, Baker, or Lamar Jackson.
All right, question number 2: if we win against the Rams, would Ben, Tuitt, Connor, and Foster out of this game? Would you agree that this could be one of Tomlin and the coaching staff's most memorable wins in recent years? What game recently were we saying if they won this would be the most impressive win of Tomlin's career? What was it? Game against the Chargers, right?
Probably. I don't remember specifically, but yeah,
but
1-4 with Duck. Yeah.
But you look back at that now, and for some reason, it don't feel like that impressive of a win, right? For some reason.
I mean, this would be obviously a very impressive win. Would it be one of the most ever? I mean, it's probably not, just based the magnitude of it just simply isn't there. But it would be. It would really tell you that this is a legit Steelers team.
All right, we're running out of time. One more. Dave and Alex, hope you don't mind a non-Bud Dupree question to change things up. A few years ago, Tomlin was quite aggressive with two-point conversions. He says he did a little research here. In 2015, the Steelers led the league in two-point attempts per game at 0.7 and converted at 66.67%. Again, in 2016, they led the league in attempts per game. 2-point attempts per game, 0.5, and converted at 40%. In 2017, it fell to 0.2, but still converted at 50%. And in 2018, the attempts per game ranking fell to 10th, 0.3, despite a success rate of 80%. However, this year, they're all the way down to 0.1 attempts per game, 2-point conversions, 23rd in the league. The trend is clear, and it's obviously can't all be attributed to losing Big Ben this year. The success rates the last 5 years have stayed relatively stable, even going up last year. Any thoughts to why this might be? Seems to me that they emphasize those plays with all the work on 7 shots and goal line in training camp. I tend to think with less proficient offense, they might actually be better served for going for 2 more often. Ooh.
That's a fair point. That's a valid way to break it down. Obviously, this year, no Ben changes things a whole lot. I wonder if they just kind of didn't have enough plays. They kind of put things on tape and said we don't have, because you only have so many plays you can run from the 2-yard line. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 plays that you like, and once you put them on tape, you're probably hesitant to use it again. So that might be the reason why. But I think that's a valid criticism.
Well, I mean, he's talking about how it's declined. You know,
right. So it's not just all losing Ben.
Right.
They didn't a lot last year. So, but again, I think it could go back to a lot of it's already on tape. Teams know it, and you run out of plays that you feel comfortable with down there. But but point taken.
Yeah, Tony, I don't have a good answer for you at all. I don't, so I'm not going to answer that there. Let's see, one last one. I lied. John Pierre writes in, hey, guys, big fan of the show. Dave, stop worrying about running too long. Okay, good, because we're running long today. No such thing. Bring on the 3-hour episodes. One more serious note. I highly respect you guys' opinion and analysis and know your conclusions are backed by evidence, not national media hot takes. That being said, I disagree with the notion that the offensive line is doing good. They have been doing good in pass protection, but run blocking has been subpar. No matter who we put in the backfield, be it Connor, Samuel, Snell, Edmonds, it doesn't matter. We average like 3 yards per carry. I know we have names like Pouncey, DeCastro, Villanueva, but with the new quarterback in Mason, we need good rushing offense to take pressure off. We've never seem to be able to get it going. Am I wrong? What am I missing? Thanks for making my drives at work more enjoyable. Here's the thing, too. When you got a young quarterback this year in Mason, you're able to stack these boxes a little bit more. Okay, that makes a difference there. Running backs not putting the ball, not exploding out of there is going to make a difference in that as well, too. Has there been a lot of running room? No. Is it a combination of a lot of things from them not having good, successful run rates? Yes. It's more than just offensive line. Has the offensive line been great in run blocking this year? No, but I mean, it's not like they're not creating lanes.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. They got to do a better job, but the circumstances of the injuries at running back and especially teams stacking the box to stop the run have not done this rushing attack any favors.
We have not seen some yards after contact that we've seen previously, too. And James Conner not being there hurts. I mean, we're talking about Edmonds here getting carries. We're talking about a guy in Jalen Samuels who technically was kind of more of a slash player in college. So he's still learning the running back position in the NFL as we go too. The Wildcat usage really technically aren't runs. They are, but they aren't. They're different kind of runs, if you will. So, look, we're going to have to take a hard look at this, from this point of the season moving forward. They have to run better, plain and simple. They have to run better earlier in games as well, too. It's going to be a big test for this Steelers offense Sunday against the Rams early in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, with that. Plenty more questions we didn't get to. We're sorry. We'll try to get to them next show. Keep sending them in. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button upper right navigational bar. If you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free version up there. For $25 a year, you can have access to the site for one full calendar year for $25. And until Monday, got a short week next week, Alex. Until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.